This guy right here is Julian Kryart Playson, born into a branch family of the noble Kryart house. Back in school, practically every girl fell head over heels for him, even though he lacked highborn royalty. But those peaceful days are gone. The man now carries a terrifying reputation on the battlefield. Everyone knows about the insane talent of young Julian of the Hidden Eyes, a genius in swordplay and magic. He is famous for slaughtering hundreds of demons with a smile on his face. His mana control is absolutely legendary, but here is the twist. Julian can actually perceive fear and anger through a colored aura that glows around people. Despite his overwhelming power, even his own family remains completely terrified of him. They have been secretly plotting his death because, as a branch member who happens to be the strongest of them all, he could seize control of the main house at any moment. Without a doubt, the original Julian was a ruthless villain who would have done exactly that, but what nobody knows is that the real Julian is dead. The guy in his body right now is actually a modern reincarnator named Lise. He was completely obsessed with a fantasy game where the main character gets slaughtered by the treacherous villain. Julian Kryart, Lise absolutely hated the character, but the gods somehow threw him right into this villain's body to rewrite his fate. The only catch, he has the physical body, but absolutely zero combat skills. Now, to ensure nobody realizes the all-powerful Julian is actually powerless, he must keep up the facade by acting just as heartless as the original villain. While overseeing a high-stakes school exam, a student accidentally bumps right into him. The merciless Julian everyone knows would have obliterated the poor kid for that simple mistake. Looking around, everyone radiates a purple aura of pure terror. Then an instructor steps in, Eileen Denasia, the sole person there. Without that terrified purple glow, back in school she was a magic prodigy who became a professor. Lise knows she must despise him from their school days. But suddenly a faint purple aura flickers around her to convince this girl that he is still the same old monster. He unleashes the harshest, most elegant insults to humiliate her. It works incredibly well. Her aura shifts to purple while her face flushes with anger. Honestly, though, Julian hates being cruel. He is just trying to act edgy to survive. His next attempt at acting cold is declaring that mistakes must be paid for. With a deadly duel, he expected her to plead so he could let her go. But she completely calls his bluff. She flares her aura and challenges him directly. If he threatens her students, he will have to cut through her first. Her face overflows with raw emotion. Julian expected cold resentment, but this was entirely unpredictable. Lacking any actual strength, he is in deep trouble now. When she turns to order the students to flee, Julian reacts immediately. He strikes from behind, shattering her magic barrier in a single blow. The sudden impact leaves her stunned. A mage is helpless at close quarters, but something is wrong. Her blushing face is not a normal reaction. His attack was unexpectedly soft. Though terrified, her deeply buried feelings suddenly come rushing back. Years ago, she admired Julian as her ultimate, unattainable idol. Despite his lower noble rank, he was perfect. Honestly, nobody could resist him. And she could not help it. For years, she admired him as the ultimate package. He had the looks, the class, and unmatched talent, but when she confessed, he rejected her. All that bitter hate she carried, it was just a deeply broken heart. Sensing that her terrifying aura of malice has finally cleared, our main character strikes fast. He slips past her defenses, gently patting her head while telling her the fight is over. Normally, a serious match like this ends with one person getting completely wiped out. But Julian speaks up with something totally unexpected. He would never use his blade against Eileen. He says he could never harm someone so beautiful, just wanting directions to the exam. Seriously, who can blame her? This sudden shift completely scrambles the poor girl's mind. Why is he acting like the gentle student she fell for back in school? What happened to his brutal post-graduation reputation? As they walk, Lee starts reflecting. He ponders the strange phrase she used, which referenced a legendary technique. Julian used to coat his blade in mana, making it glow with a brilliant blue light. It looked as though he was holding a piece of the glowing moon itself. With this very weapon, he slew endless demons, earning it a terrifying nickname. People called it the Moonlight Sword, speaking of it with immense awe and dread. Since this is Julian's iconic weapon, mimicking his style will be incredibly tough for Lei. The fact that Eileen already spotted a difference in his movements is very bad news. Big trouble, now Lee must ensure she does not suspect a single thing. He suddenly turns to the two nervous students following them and asks what's wrong. Nothing, they quickly stammer out, too terrified to say another word. They keep moving forward until the three of them finally reach the training hall door. Stepping inside with a smug grin, Julian apologizes to the crowd for being late. He jokingly blames poor Eileen before formally introducing himself to the room. He announces he is running the entrance exam today, knowing they already know his name. Nearby, Heron quietly scans the crowd, looking for a very specific student. His gaze stops on the second son of the powerful Torso family. This clan has maintained close, friendly ties with the Kryart family for generations. Joining the legendary Shut Eyes faction is a massive honor, making the exam highly competitive. Usually, candidates must survive a direct clash with one of the elite instructors. If Julian fails this noble boy during the trial, it is over. The corrupt Elder Association will use that failure as the perfect excuse to destroy him. Heron is absolutely certain that this exam will mark the end of Julian's career. Meanwhile, the young examiner asks the candidates if they truly want to join the Shut Eyes. Shaking with nerves, the kids quickly yell yes. The silver-haired instructor just laughs. He sighs, telling them he sees nothing but a bunch of pathetic, cowardly trash. He openly mocks their soft, pampered eyes and their fragile, unused swords. The organization they are so desperate to enter is the most ruthless in the Empire. As their senior officer, Julian promises to give them a brutal taste of reality. With that, the official exam begins, and the criteria for passing is simple. To pass, they simply have to kill Julian Kryart. Talk about an impossible challenge. Total silence, then pure panic sweeps through the entire crowd. Julian grips his sword with outward confidence, though inside he is sweating bullets. He tells himself that this extreme bluff is the only way to fool everyone. Heron steps forward, warning him that even for an entrance trial, this is madness. He cannot afford to go easy. During his past fight with Eileen, he had no choice. But to run away, now he must face a real duel. This would show Heron and the other students how weak he actually is. Worse, without his Moonlight Sword, his legendary status is completely gone. They will assume his reputation is fake or his memory loss is real. Under all of this crushing pressure, the young man completely froze up. To make matters even worse, if he acts too suspiciously, she might strike. Eileen's incredibly sharp gaze remains locked on his every move, gripping his sword tightly. The protagonist desperately searches for a solution. His best strategy now is to provoke them into a trap. With a cold, mocking sneer, he declares the exam only ends with death. But the terrified students are far too scared to move. Julian stands his ground with absolute firmness, staring them down. Suddenly, a shaking hand slowly rises up from the crowd. A pale, trembling boy begs to withdraw from the test immediately. Soon, several other hands shoot up, requesting the exact same thing. The Torso family's second son looks on in utter disappointment. Gritting his teeth, the proud boy hates admitting defeat but follows the crowd. He raises his hand too. The instructors cannot believe their eyes. Every single applicant is quitting. Julian places a hand over his mouth and begins to laugh heartily, his expensive cape fluttering dramatically in the wind. With everyone running away like complete cowards, there will be no exam. Lee's crazy plan worked perfectly. Julian's cruel reputation saved him again. Still, our main character is highly curious about how this affected Eileen, wondering if the widespread panic actually made her feel even more furious. But looking closely at her, she does not seem annoyed at all. He cannot sense any trace of anger. Is his power broken? Actually, this dramatic bluff reminds the young woman of the past. Back then, Julian always avoided unnecessary conflicts by simply terrorizing his opponents. Sometime later, back at the headquarters of the Shut Eyes, someone calls out to the silver-haired young man. It is Harand coming over. To congratulate him on his actions, Julian is not pleased. He places his hands firmly on Harand's shoulders, instantly terrifying the poor guy, relieved his power works. Julian says Harand was the one doing all the heavy lifting. Suddenly, another young man interrupts their talk with sparkling eyes. He excitedly praises Julian's awesome stunt, introducing himself as Lazarth. As the administrator of the Shut Eyes, he is honored to meet him. Clearly, the rumors about Julian's memory loss were completely false. The exam ended peacefully, without a single drop of blood. But Julian is already getting sick of all the useless chatter. Lazarth eagerly notes that even the Torso family's second son was there. But Julian did not hold back. This startling revelation hits Heron like a cold needle. Enraged, he points at Lazarth, demanding to know what he is saying or if he is belittling them. Blaming a participant is wild, considering their family ties. Those two noble houses are tightly linked, making his remarks completely unacceptable. Speaking calmly, Julian suggests that either Heron or his family is causing a huge misunderstanding because the Shut Eyes never accept any nobles directly linked to the royal family. Only commoners or ruined nobles are allowed. To join, Heron then asks if Julian is actually a noble himself, laughing. Sarcastically, Julian explains he is merely from a minor branch of the family. On top of that, everyone just views him as an imperial lapdog. Still, that kid from the Torso family joined the exam, fully aware that he could never pass the second screening. Maybe they wanted to teach him a lesson through this, or maybe there is some darker conspiracy playing out. Talk about a rigged entrance exam. Heron's body starts shaking the second he hears those words. Clenching his fists tight, he fears his secret plan is exposed completely. But the silver-haired boy quickly laughs it off, calling it a simple misunderstanding. Still, Heron remains utterly terrified of getting caught, especially as Julian adds that if this is no misunderstanding, things will get messy. Back at the castle, Julian is finally home. The maids greet him with respectful, polite bows as he strolls down the halls with a smile. One asks if he wants dinner, but he declines. Instead, he turns to her and strictly requests that absolutely nobody enter his study. The maid quickly nods, a flicker of genuine fear showing as she obeys him. Safely inside his private room, Julian is finally completely alone. He drops his sword on the table and sinks into a comfortable chair. Observing Heron flinch earlier, he is now almost certain a conspiracy is playing out behind this exam. He was seriously lucky not to get exposed today, but wonders how long that good fortune can last before the association will undoubtedly spot his weaknesses, which would mean getting exiled from the family. His gaze drifts to the weapon on the table. The fact that he cannot summon the Moonlight Sword today worries him greatly. Being able to wield that weapon means having the absolute power to subdue others. That being the case, he resolves to pick up the blade once more to see what happens next. Perhaps some practice will finally unlock the weapon's true power. A brilliant blue light glows as Julian draws it from its sheath. Upon fully drawing the blade, he inspects it closely, gripping the hilt tight as he lifts it. Naturally, the moonlight does not trigger. Julian's natural talent makes him an incredibly gifted swordsman. The moment he holds any weapon, he instantly visualizes the exact path the blade must take. This gift was born with him, allowing him to master any sword effortlessly. But Raw skill is not quite enough here. Countless elite warriors can match his blade work easily, the thing that truly sets him apart is different. It is the massive gap in core abilities concerning aura or mana. That strength is how he survived, even with his chaotic thoughts spinning as he tests his new body. Julian still steadies his grip. Directing mana is dangerous. If it flows backward, he is done. One wrong move could destroy his vital organs, making him pretty worried. But there is no time to panic. Sooner or later, he has to prove his worth. If this world uses the same mana rules as the game, his massive experience will save him. After all, Lee has spent thousands of hours mastering every little detail. Now he must carefully guide the raw, accumulated energy in his chest toward his mana veins. Out of these 38 mana meridians, 6 are incredibly massive, including those running inside his head. This is exactly the vital spot where the deep, raw essence of mana connects to his heart. So this crucial, dormant area must be fully awakened right now. Julian's crimson eyes snap open as his chaotic aura begins to flare. Nodding proudly to himself, he places a hand on his hip and starts channeling the power. The resistance is far worse than he imagined, but his skill should suffice. Suddenly, the sword begins to shine with a brilliant, celestial glow. It shines with the genuine, pure glow of moonlight, but the spark fades too quickly. The weak light reached the blade, looking almost like a crescent moon. At the very least, it is a start, as the first sliver has finally appeared. A bit later, our protagonist stands in the middle of a training ground. Surrounded by wooden dummies, he quietly focuses and prepares to strike. With one hand gripping the sheath, he draws the blade like a flash of lightning. He dashes past his target, instantly shattering the heavy wooden dummy. Wood splinters fly everywhere as he realizes he has finally reached night level. His next major goal is to fully master the legendary Moonlight Sword technique. Unfortunately, his extensive knowledge from the game is finally running thin, and he needs help. He needs to find a trustworthy person to ask for some solid advice. At that very moment, a maid approaches the training grounds to call for her master. A guest has arrived, which seems like the perfect chance to get advice. But it is nobody important at all, just the talkative Lazarus. All excitement completely drains from the young master's face. Lazarus, on the other hand, is absolutely thrilled that the young master actually remembers his name. Honestly, it is impossible to forget someone who chatters like a parrot. It takes either immense courage or absolute stupidity to babble around Julian. Cutting the useless chatter short, the young master asks why he is here. Lazarus explains he was sent by the commander to deliver the academy results. Julian finds this pretty useless since the outcome was already totally obvious. Even so, delivering the physical results is a mandatory part of the process. Already turning his back, the swordsman tells him to report the news. "Tell them 0 candidates passed the exam," he says, before suddenly stopping. Wait, Julian has a much better idea and calls out to him. He asks if this news will be reported directly to the commander. Since that is indeed the case, Julian decides he will go and deliver it himself. Stunned, the young messenger can barely believe what he is hearing. Placing a hand on his shoulder, Julian offers a ride in his carriage. An expression of pure terror washes over the messenger as he stammeringly asks what he did wrong. Julian quickly tells him to calm down, assuring him that everything is fine. In reality, the protagonist only wanted to offer a kind ride back to town. But with Julian's terrible reputation, even simple kindness feels like a threat. With things turning out like this, Julian wonders if he should ask that man for advice. The commander of the Shut Eyes must surely know that silver-haired man. Well, if so, the Kryart family has no chance. Their schemes are dead. As long as the Shut Eyes are involved, far away in a gorgeous castle adorned with gold, a uniformed officer begins shouting to warn his commander of a major problem. Stuttering, the young man gasps that that person has arrived in person. Julian Kryart himself has decided to pay a visit, In a calm voice, the commander merely repeats the news. His gaze remains completely mysterious, as if he were guarding deep secrets. The palace of the Adrathan Empire is truly stunning, and our protagonist never imagined he would see it with his own eyes. The continent of Rosenda, the main setting of the game, is dominated by three great nations, and the strongest is the Adrathan Empire, where Julian currently resides. After the demon Barbatus was sealed, the war-torn lands united under a powerful monarchy that grew into a superpower, the symbol of which is this majestic and incredibly beautiful palace. Inwardly, Lee is absolutely marveling at the breathtaking wonders around him, but outwardly, Julian maintains his stoic expression. Lazarus, on the other hand, is terrified by the quiet chuckles the swordsman keeps letting out. Yet, something else catches his attention as he thinks it over. Normally, the great Julian is only accessible through his servants, but now he wants to meet the commander personally and has even brought a commoner along, which is incredibly strange. The nearby citizens notice this anomaly too. One man whispers to another that he thought the young lord was badly injured, but he looks perfectly fine. Everyone begins to suspect the rumors about his memory loss are completely false. For poor Lazarus, it is a grand honor to be here, but his nerves are so wrecked he feels like he might faint at any moment. Looking pretty satisfied, Julian remarks that the palace is still wonderfully majestic. He explains that this is only the main gate, meaning the captain should be stationed somewhere past the second gate. This admiration seems deeply bizarre to Lazarus, since this should be a very familiar sight for any member of the Shut Eyes. Suddenly, a dark thought hits him. What if this is all some secret trial? The swordsman's sharp gaze seems to prove his fears. Recruit like him needs another trial, but while poor Lazarus is wrestling with these terrifying thoughts, Julian is simply enjoying the gorgeous view with his own eyes, taking in scenery he previously only saw on a screen. He finally notices the pure terror on the young recruit's face. Is he doing okay? Quickly squeaks out that he is completely fine. The palace is built with so much gold that its golden brilliance glimmers across the horizon. As they approach, the poor recruit nervously asks if he passed. Totally baffled, Julian stares at him. He denies any secret test, saying there would be absolutely no reason to do that. Overjoyed, the young recruit immediately assumes this means he is already seen as a full-fledged member of the Shut Eyes. He thanks Julian endlessly, and then eagerly excuses himself, happily skipping away while humming a tune, leaving our confused protagonist completely baffled. Just then, a palace guard approaches to inform Julian that the captain has granted him entry. Finally, the time has come to meet his commander, Captain Odwin Ballider, the sole heir to the Ballider family. His incredible strength and leadership earned him the rank of captain. He is the only person capable of uniting and controlling the members of the Shut Eyes, taking orders only from the imperial family. Lee imagines how charismatic this captain must be in real life, and that thought makes him quite nervous. Reaching a heavily decorated door, he asks if he can enter. A voice grants him permission. Surprisingly, the person sitting in the captain's chair is nothing like what our protagonist had imagined. With a completely serene look, Odwin Ballider welcomes Julian and asks if it is true that he is injured. Still reeling from the shock of seeing the captain as a little girl, Julian tries to keep a straight face, but seeing her tiny size leaves him even more bewildered. In Lee's memories, the captain was indeed someone of short stature, but he never recalled her being a young girl who looked so incredibly young. Suddenly, the girl's small index finger points right at Julian's face. In an irritated voice, Odwin asks if he was about to call her small, as usual. Awkwardly, the young man denies it, but realizes her terrifying reputation is quite accurate. She then commands him to speak about the injuries he suffered. Crossing his arms behind his back, Julian feels pretty unsure of what to say. He wonders if he needs to watch his words very carefully around her, knowing The game character well, Lee knows that in the worst case, she might become deeply suspicious of him, despite being arrogant, the original. Julian was fiercely loyal to the Shut Eyes, so he must keep acting highly respectful toward the captain. Bowing, the young man thanks her for her concern. He claims that while his injury was pretty severe, it was not enough to shake his absolute loyalty to the Empire. An awkward silence fills the room, making Lee worry he said something wrong. The captain just observes him, putting a finger to her lips. Suddenly, bam, she slams her hand down, shattering the heavy silence. She stands up and walks right over to Julian, claiming that something seems off. The young man squeezes his eyes shut, wishing he could escape the room as she asks if he has always spoken this way, bringing the hilt of her sword right to the boy's face. She warns that he's acting like a total stranger. Terrified, Julian can literally see the negative aura bleeding from Odwin. It is the color of denial, meaning she's truly suspicious. Honestly, how on earth did the real Julian treat his superior back then? With a lightning-fast move, the young man grabs the hilt of her weapon, deciding that he needs to act aggressive like a true villain. This immediately irritates the girl, who hates anyone touching her sword. She turns, noting he rarely ever shows up at headquarters, and when he does, he just drops off his reports and vanishes. So, acting this diligent is pretty suspicious. Lee had assumed that even Julian would draw a clear professional line with the Shut Eyes, but it seems that was just a foolish assumption on his part. He quickly explains that he came in person because his severe injuries kept him away from his duties. So our protagonist decides to adopt the bold, shameless attitude the original host would have. With a sarcastic smirk, he asks if she is trying to control whether he decides to show up or not. The young woman replies that Odwin heard rumors that Julian acted strangely after getting hurt, but he seems completely recovered now. Still, seeing her act so bluntly around Julian remains highly unsettling to him. She is no ordinary woman. Shifting focus, she directly asks about the exam. Asking if any of the candidates actually showed some real promise, she looks at Julian. Calmly tells her there was absolutely no one. The captain expected as much, though, knowing that as Haydenreich's disciple, normal talents would simply never impress a fighter like him. Still, she asks if there wasn't even a single trainee prospect. But Julian denies it again. Meanwhile, Odwin continues reading over a sheet of official exam papers, her voice laced with clear irritation as she asks if he really failed every last student. Flashing a brazen smile, Julian calmly confirms it. This only makes the captain even more agitated, demanding to know his exact reasoning behind it. But Julian stays quiet, just smiling. Furious, the captain repeats her question, standing up so fast her beret flies right off her head. She argues that the Shut Eyes are desperately short-handed and even one more recruit would help, but Julian retorts that being short-handed is absolutely no excuse to go around accepting just any idiot. To Odwin, some of those talents could have flourished with proper training. But Julian believes that would be a total waste of precious time. In reality, though, this was actually just Julian's clever excuse to avoid fighting those annoying students. Completely out of patience, the angry young woman tells Julian to get out of her sight. But before leaving, Julian mentions that he has a small proposal to make. He reaches into his coat pocket, placing a plain white envelope on her desk. Inside, the document neatly outlines all the massive flaws in their current admission exam. Confused, Odwin picks up the paper and immediately starts reading. According to Julian's notes, candidates don't understand what kind of organization the Shut Eyes actually is. Odwin has to agree, realizing the candidates truly do not comprehend what they signed up for. She decides to read through exactly what the young man wrote next. One particular sentence states that when a person signs up for the admission exam, the Shut Eyes will take absolutely zero responsibility for whatever happens. To Odwin, this sounds less like a standard disclaimer and far more like a direct threat. warning them that Julian will face candidates with killing intent. She asks if she is correct, but the protagonist just laughs it off with that signature, incredibly sarcastic chuckle of his. He avoids answering. In reality, Julian holds a highly powerful rank within the Shut Eyes, yet he has never once meddled in their complex internal political affairs. Interfering like this is highly unusual, the captain figures out his true motive. Concluding this is why he failed everyone he wanted to avoid any serious trouble after beating those candidates half to death. Julian shrugs and confirms it, adding that accepted rookies are useless anyway, especially since their agency serves the imperial family. Julian refuses to forgive anyone who tarnishes their nobility. Odwin sighs, noting how he always gets incredibly touchy whenever the imperial family is brought up. Still, she agrees to take his letter directly to the council, though she makes absolutely no promises that they will actually agree to approve his written proposal. After their conversation, Julian asks to be dismissed, but Odwin tells him to wait. She informs him that an important official message from the imperial family is heading straight toward his office. Julian just smiles, looking back to offer his quick thanks before leaving the captain behind to watch him go. The young woman then simply returns to reading. She stares at the letter, quietly reflecting on the cold words inside. To avoid responsibility means any death during the exam is simply ignored. No crimes, no investigations, but that does not change the harsh reality. Only ruined nobles or poor commoners are ever allowed to apply anyway. Complaints never surface. The reason for that is pretty simple. The cries of the weak are easily buried. Julian knows this. He liked this because the elders are scheming. They and the Torso family are plotting something dirty during the trials. His letter is a clear warning. I know what you are doing. If anything like this happens again, he will not stay quiet. This is his cold revenge on those greedy elders. Odwin's deep thoughts are suddenly cut short when a guard steps inside. She quickly hands him the letter and orders him to deliver it directly to the council. The guard obeys and leaves. Until now, Julian was just a puppet. A loyal lap dog of the royal family, that was his reputation. But this obedient beast has finally grown an ego of its own. He is breaking his chains. The realization makes Odwin highly uneasy. She must watch him closely. He is becoming far too dangerous to ignore. Meanwhile, Julian arrives at his private office inside the Shut Eyes headquarters. Normally, ordinary members do not get their own private rooms here. There is no need for standby. Honestly, what does his private office look like? Probably something pretty grand and luxurious, fitting a major association member. And his flashy style is everywhere. His flashy outfits hang alongside some truly sinister and creepy decorations. None of these things are for work. Everything here looks absurdly expensive. It is far more over the top than his house. He steps on scattered junk. Messy floor. It turns out our young master swordsman is actually a hoarder. A sudden knock sounds on the door. Julian tells them to enter. It is Lazarth, delivering a letter sent straight from the imperial palace. Smiling brightly, the young boy carefully hands over the clean envelope. This must be the message the captain was talking about earlier. Before the boy can leave, Julian orders him to load the carriage. Startled, Lazarth asks if he should take all of these heavy sculptures. Julian nods. The boy is so happy he looks ready to cry. He is thrilled to get a task, hoping his internship is ending. The excited kid immediately begins carrying out all the weird trinkets. Lifting a massive chest, he trips on some random junk scattered on the floor. He crashes hard. Fortunately, nothing is broken during the fall. Julian is not even mad, just watching with a sarcastic smirk. But Lazarth is absolutely terrified, thinking he will get severely punished. To ease the heavy tension, Julian decides to throw out a joke. He tells him that cleaning up his corpse would be too annoying. Realizing it is best to stay quiet, the boy moves faster. With that settled, Julian finally opens the letter while he waits. The envelope is stamped with the royal crest, signaling some major trouble. This message starts off by addressing its recipient in a different handwriting. Luckily, Julian can read it. Basically, it tells him that the second he heals up, he is back on duty. Quite a sugar-coated way to enslave him. Still, field practice is good. Experience helps him practice his swordplay. The quest, restore a resonant stone, wild monsters called demons roam, and everything changed after the fall of the demon god Barbatus. His left-behind remains, which either possessed living things or took on physical shapes, became the very demons plaguing this world. They constantly attack humans, and the items used to defeat them became known as resonant stones, the great legacy of mages, who forged them with high-tier mana. Since Julian is no magic user, he will likely act as a bodyguard for the mage fixing the stone. Even though facing demons is highly dangerous, he has no real excuse to decline if he pulls off this mission. All those nasty rumors surrounding him will finally fade. He is pretty curious about the partner he is guarding, since handling these stones demands insane magical talent. He hopes they send someone highly capable. Meanwhile, over at the Imperial Palace of Adrathan, a girl with long brown hair stretches out. It is Eileen, wondering why she is stuck writing tedious reports even after earning her professor title. Apparently, a mage must constantly prove themselves, especially to the incredibly demanding royal family. Suddenly, a hand gently taps her on the back. It is Diana, a green-haired lady, asking what brings her to the palace. She notes that Eileen must be incredibly busy as she has not seen her in forever before offering a tea invite. Although tempted, the busy professor declines because of her massive thesis. Diana smiles and notes she is still incredibly diligent, just like school days. Suddenly, something catches Diana's eye, and she points toward Julian's arriving carriage, which has just pulled up. That specific crest belongs solely to branch members of the Kryart family, meaning it is definitely him. Diana mentions hearing that the young lord was practically on his deathbed, yet here he is, up and active. With a playful smirk, she catches her friend's stiff posture busted. Diana asks if she still harbors a crush on him. She reminds her that back then, Eileen was so incredibly naive that she believed the rumor about confessing love under the Academy's cherry blossom tree and actually dragged Julian right there. Desperate to stop this, the mage quickly changes her mind and decides she magically has free time for tea after all. But Diana teases that there is no need to blush, since literally every girl in school adored the young lord back then. This gets Eileen thinking. Honestly, he used to be a totally different person compared to who he is today. He changed after surviving the brutal Northern Front and joining the elite Shut Eyes. Diana asks if she plans to go say hello, but Eileen scoffs. Liking him once does not mean she still does. Besides, she can easily avoid seeing his face for an incredibly long time. Pulling out an official envelope, the young woman announces she won't be returning to the palace anytime soon. Surprised, Diana stares at the wax seal, recognizing it as a direct order from the royal family. Eileen has been tasked with a dangerous quest, restoring a critical resonant stone. Soldiers with readied spears braced themselves. One muttered, "Why do we have this many guards?" Apparently, even the elite Shut Eyes and the Blue Knights were joining the operation. This was a heavy mission, one that even the legendary Julian would be lighting. The guards gossiped about the rumors that the young lord had lost his memory. To them, it was impossible to imagine a powerhouse like him ever getting hurt. Hearing this made Julian quite glad. He took the job to disprove the rumors. Just then, a couple of armored knights approached him with respectful nods. They thanked Julian for coming. It was Parn and Heinleich of the Blue Lions. Together, the three of them were tasked with guarding a group of Imperial mages. Their destination was Julian, but the road ahead was crawling with danger. Horrible demons could jump them at any moment. Still, Heinleich had a question. Why not ride comfortably inside the carriage instead of traveling on horseback? That way, Julian could rest while they took care of the spellcasters. It sounded like a polite offer, but Julian knew better than to trust it. These Blue Knights were proud imperial soldiers, and most of them came from noble blood. Unlike the pragmatic shut-eyes, they hated when a low-ranking branch member stole their glory. They wanted him hidden away so they could claim the spotlight. Still, a comfortable carriage ride sounded pretty good, so the young man agreed. Heinlein smiled, pleased that their target was so incredibly easy to manipulate. But the moment he mentioned that the mage Eileen was arriving, Julian froze. His eyes went wide, but there was no time to ask questions. "Speak of the devil," a sweet, familiar voice called out to the group. Eileen introduced herself, then spotted the one person she never wanted to see. Cold sweat dripping, Julian immediately told Parn to completely forget about the carriage ride. Eileen stared in utter shock, stunned that her ex was here and actively ignoring her. Julian just turned his back, utterly unable to face her or read her mind. He felt totally exposed around her. Meanwhile, the watching soldiers completely misread the room. They assumed Julian rejected the carriage just to assert his dominance over them. They even panicked, thinking he had figured out their little plot to sideline him. That was the level of cunning you expected from someone surviving the imperial family. Surviving that nest of vipers with zero backing required a pretty sharp mind. Still, the noble knights hated how a mere branch member dared look down on them. They grumbled, but Julian was way too distracted by his own silent panic. Why on earth did nobody warn him that Eileen was the mage they were guarding? She looked just as stiff as he did. Talk about an awkward reunion. Wishing to end this torment, Julian decided to rush the mission as fast as possible. He kicked his horse into a sprint, desperate to put distance between them. Pushing hard, the group quickly reached Julian, which turned out to be a tiny village. Even though they came on imperial business, the streets were ghost town empty. Eventually, a local youth carrying wooden crates spotted them and called out. He offered a warm welcome, guiding them directly toward the resonant stone. As the guards coordinated the setup, Eileen decided to carry a heavy box herself. These mana-sensitive stones required incredibly delicate handling, so she trusted no one else. But the local youth stopped her, asking if she could inspect a damaged stone first. He led her toward the back, pointing out a massive, glowing blue crystal. The rock has a nasty crack at its base, and the mage says it is useless. Repairing it is out of the question, so it has to be replaced, meaning the barrier will drop. It will disappear briefly, but she assures everyone there is no reason to worry. The process will be quick, and she carefully places her hand against the cold stone. She knows she has to warn Julian about the barrier dropping during the transition. Although looking at his face is the absolute last thing she wants to do right now. She has to remain completely professional. After all, she is still a teacher. When she approaches him, he immediately turns his back, forcing her to push forward. She tells him it is incredibly important, desperately trying to understand why he keeps avoiding her. No matter his reasons, this is no time for games when they are on a mission. Grabbing his cloak, she demands to know why he is ignoring her. But Julian calmly replies that he is not avoiding her at all. Instead, he claims she is the one desperately following him around like a stalker. Her face flushes bright red, nearly falling for his incredibly confident tone. Cutting straight to the chase, Eileen snaps that none of this matters right now. Julian smirks mockingly and asks what could possibly be more important to Miss Stalker. She is about to explode when a massive roar suddenly cuts them off. Demons have just breached the city, instantly snapping their focus to the skies. Eileen quickly explains this is the exact danger she tried to warn him about. Without the barrier holding them back, these monsters can spawn anywhere at any moment. Terrified screams echo through the streets as a very familiar figure approaches them. It is Heinlein running right toward them, but Julian spots something that freezes his blood. Sharp, menacing horns emerge from the dust cloud right behind Heinlein. A terrifying two-horned demon has just launched a devastating ambush on the battalion. This is no ordinary beast. As Eileen moves forward, Julian steps in front of her. He barks at her to stay back, warning that this opponent is way too dangerous. The massive beast continues to roar, leaving her trembling as she searches for a plan. How can they possibly take down something this strong? Speaking in a bizarre tongue, the monster orders the horde to attack, and one lunges. It charges straight for Eileen, but Julian leaps into action with his sword ready. He shields her with his body and warns her to keep her guard up. He cannot resist teasing her, mocking her for getting so easily shaken by this. He tells her to leave the frontline combat to a proper swordsman like him. They both need to focus entirely on what they do best right now. You cannot blame her for stuttering, nervously asking what they are supposed to do. Julian points at her, declaring that the mage must focus on repairing the stone. His job is to protect her from everything else, no matter what happens. He jokingly asks if the teacher is too terrified to remember her own job. Snapping back to reality, Eileen rushes to the stone, yelling that she needs 7 minutes. She looks back and calls Julian's name, pleading with him to stay safe. She reminds him that she has absolutely no way to cast healing magic. Julian grips his hilt, cockily replying that getting hurt is not on his schedule. But inside, his heart is pounding, totally terrified of the creature before him. He never expected to fight a two-horned demon this early, and running is impossible. With too many witnesses around, fleeing now would completely ruin his reputation. What the real Julian would do, heavy footsteps disrupt his thoughts. The blue lions finally arrive. They are stepping in to fight. They charge straight into the battle zone with absolute focus. The demon looks incredibly dangerous. Now, Julian and the knights stand alongside the spearmen ready. A brutal battle is here. One cautious soldier plans to keep chipping away at the demon. Trying to joke, he asks if Julian fears the two-horned demon. Honestly, fear is not in his character. Suddenly, the soldiers' faces look completely shocked to see the silver-haired boy. Laughing, Lee knows the real Julian would act exactly like this. The demon does not wait. It immediately winds up a massive punch. Yet the young noble actually seems to be enjoying this fight. His eyes widen in shock. Easily, his incredible reflexes kick in. He dodges the heavy blow and strikes right back. Parn is deeply impressed. That single strike did massive damage. Black blood splatters across his face as he smiles like a madman. His sword glows with brilliant moonlight. The boy runs forward swiftly. He leaps high into the air. He prepares a fierce slash. His blade strikes the demon's horn. Success. The swordsman grins again. But a giant red eye is locked on him. Julian is in trouble. He was extremely careless. The demon's head strikes him squarely. Heavily wounded, the boy feels the brutal blow. Pain takes over. Breathing is hard, but even a cornered worm fights back fiercely. He doesn't give up. He lunges and drives his sword deep into the demon's skeletal flesh. Then he crashes hard onto the ground. A deep crater forms. The soldiers panic, but Parn watches closely. He sees his chance to lead. Suddenly, another soldier yells out. Look back, the boy's dark silhouette is still standing tall. His sword glows brighter than ever, shining deep blue. A soldier recognizes it. The legendary Moonlight Sword is finally active. The blade is fully awake. Every fighter on the battlefield is stunned. Seeing the fabled Moonlight Sword leaves them completely speechless. It's not even at half power, yet the demon is already in trouble. Relentlessly, Julian steps closer. Blue energy erupts from his body. He is completely focused. He is in pure ecstasy, and the demon feels it. The impact hits Julian too. The monster is slow but strikes with surprising speed. Julian predicts every attack easily. His innate talent guides him. Deeply focused, the noble deflects every incoming strike. Swiftly, he avoids all the charges. His red eyes stay locked on his target, watching this. The soldiers are amazed. Parn finally sees the boy's fame is entirely real. Meanwhile, the magic resonance stone is nearly ready. Only a few final touches remain. The skilled mage works. Quickly, leaning over the high wall, she shouts to everyone. With the barrier active, on the field, heavy rocks begin to float. Around the beast, it is distracted. Seizing his chance, Julian calls him out, telling the monster that looking away mid-fight is an incredibly foolish move. He lunges right at the head, executing a devastating slash with his blade. In a blinding flash of light, he slices clean through his enemy. Tearing it apart, Eileen is frozen, completely speechless. The surrounding soldiers are just as stunned. The terrible demon that had once ruled their nightmares now falls a lifeless puppet. It collapses heavily to the cold ground. The massive body hits the dirt as Julian strikes a perfect, heroic pose. It is over, a flawless victory. All around him, the crowd begins to whisper. In sheer disbelief, Julian realizes his exhausting efforts actually paid off. The crowd is terrified, yet deeply awed. He is a villain after all, so witnessing his raw, explosive power naturally breeds a lot of fear. Lost in thought, he barely hears a shaky voice call out to him. A soldier steps forward, grabbing his hands. The man is crying, thanking him from the bottom of his heart. They were convinced they would die. Relief washes over the weary warriors, and a small, quiet celebration begins. Pin approaches next. He thanks the swordsman, but something is clearly off. The man is trembling, sweating profusely. Julian notices the deep anxiety and gently pats Pin on the shoulder, telling him to take care of the rest of the work. He simply has no appetite for social praise. This makes Pin realize something. Julian stands apart, unbelievably calm. Facing a legendary demon like that is not human. Slipping away from the celebrating crowd, the young man seeks some much-needed quiet. He walks toward a crystal-clear lake and sits down, letting the tension fade. Alone at last, the dust settles. The sheer danger finally hits him. All the bottled-up terror, panic, and despair he just ignored come crashing back. His hands are shaking badly. Real life is just way too terrifying. He wonders how the original Julian survived such absolute horrors without breaking. The boy fought so hard to act the part that it genuinely scared him. Now he worries. Is his mind changing along with his physical body? A dark, nagging question echoes. Just how strong was the true Julian? The powerful skill he just unleashed is a fusion of two souls. He combined Lee's gaming knowledge directly with Julian's lifetime of experience. Now he can see every critical weakness and expose his enemy's flaws. The skill even multiplies his damage if the target is paralyzed with fear. With this, erasing suspicion will be easy, but one massive problem remains. The Moonlight Sword. It is incomplete, customized only for Julian's specific style. Studying the blade, the exhausted youth carefully slides it back into place. The fierce combat left heavy damage, with deep scratches marring the metal after. Draining immense amounts of mana, it is far weaker than the completed version. But as he repeats the word stability in his mind, inspiration strikes. Looking at his reflection in the water, a brilliant, scheming plan forms. Far off, majestic flags wave in the wind, where hooded figures wait in absolute silence. Suddenly, an elegant man swings open the heavy doors to a grand dining hall where the powerful and scheming association of elder nobles is currently gathered. The hooded figures order the trembling newcomer to sit, and Heron looks absolutely terrified. A masked speaker asks if Julian really uncovered their plans and how he responded. Trembling with deep dread, Heron quickly and fearfully confirms that the rumor is indeed completely true. Julian already knows. He figured out every detail of their secret group. One noble immediately scoffs, saying he already predicted this disaster. He loudly and bitterly curses Heron's total uselessness, knowing it would eventually cause them massive problems. Without those strong family ties, the young man would already be dead and buried. Another shadowy figure comments on the highly suspicious, strange movements of the shut eyes lately. They even sent a bold proposal straight to the imperial secretary. Heron speaks up now, revealing that the shut eyes will not take any blame for anything. They will not be held accountable for any deaths during the upcoming exams. This instantly darkens the room, prompting a furious man to slam his fist. He roars that doing this is basically surrendering completely to every single one of Julian's demands. Total chaos, his furious words spark immediate outrage. Angry shouts erupt everywhere, until one calm voice suggests this is an opportunity. Lord Aiden clasps his hands, and you just know he has a wicked plan. He reminds the council that Julian has only ever acted on imperial orders. But if the young hero is finally starting to break away from those chains of theirs, and if he begins acting entirely on his own accord, things will shift. It works so much better, making him a far more useful pawn for their future plans. Way better than when they simply threw him onto the frozen northern front. An indignant lord asks if Aiden is seriously proposing they let the young man run wild. He smiles. Aiden confirms that is exactly what he wants. Meanwhile, back in his private quarters, Julian finally takes time to rest. Lush and green, his plants are clearly being nurtured with extreme care. Relaxing in a space tailored perfectly to his own taste brings him a deep sense of peace. These plants possess a quiet magic that can soothe even his troubled soul. The mission was wild. Fortunately, those rumors are completely dispelled. Opening a massive chest, he pulls out a beautifully glowing scarlet gemstone. With this brilliant red crystal, Julian finally has a way to finish his weapon. He intends to embed this gem directly into his legendary moonlight sword. This clever plan actually came to him after studying the unique resonance stones. In this game world, literally every single physical object has the natural ability to absorb mana. Imperial crystals possess the absolute highest conductivity, making them highly efficient. So he will borrow this exact concept to channel and store mana straight into the blade. This creates a specialized buffer layer, acting as a perfect conductor for his energy. Disaster strikes. The very second his fingers touch the rare gemstone, it completely shatters. Just like that, it shatters. Talk about some bad luck for our hero. Now he realizes he must go out and find a much stronger stone to match his mana. Suddenly, a soft knock at the door interrupts his thoughts, likely dinner time. Julian permits the guest to enter, and his loyal butler steps inside. The incredibly diligent Lazarus is standing right there, ready to assist his master once more. He delivers an urgent message. The imperial secretary expects Julian for a personal report. Julian freezes instantly, repeating the strange instruction to make absolutely sure he heard it right. Standing up, he tells his faithful butler to put away the broken crystals. Back in the chest, that sudden summons from the office was pretty intriguing. Highly intriguing. Before the swordsman could leave, Lazarus called out to him. He held up the shattered red stones, asking what to do with them. Throw them away, though the aide felt it was a complete waste to discard such pretty little things. He obeyed. Julian finally arrived. He reached the imperial secretary's office. It was a remarkably elegant place. The young man introduced himself and asked for Sedan Orby. He waited. But the attendant explained that Orby was busy in an important meeting. He was told to wait. Julian calmly agreed to stay right there. No problem, the guest ahead of him must hold an incredibly high status. He entered the waiting room, a space never shown in reality. It looked surprisingly refined. Suddenly, something in the corner caught his attention. A sword. It was quite odd to see a weapon left here casually. It was left so casually, plus the weapon did not match this elegant room at all. Still, it clearly belonged to a master. The sheath bore an inscription, "A strong body harbors a strong mind." Julian felt like he had seen those exact words somewhere. Hands off, a stern voice suddenly orders him to step away from the sword. The voice was incredibly familiar. He did not even need to look around to recognize her. It was Ren Ronbel from a prestigious family. She was a knight and the top disciple of Hayden Reich. In the actual game, her life was cut short by none other than Julian Kryart Plen himself. The memory of her lifeless body flashed by. Now she was standing right in front of him, in person. As Hayden's pupil, she could help him escape this dangerous game world. Ren was highly skilled, talented enough to eventually surpass Julian in combat. She was fiercely loyal to her master, for that very reason. She had a special wedding dress designed, making her highly popular. But currently, the protagonist is stuck playing the role of Julian. And all he can feel from the girl is pure hatred. Pure venom when she demands to know why he touched her sword. Julian says he was only looking. He decides to tease her. He remarks that leaving her master's weapon unattended is quite careless. She snaps back that Hayden hates carrying a weapon. Excellent. Now he has an opening. He asks if Hayden is inside. Ren gets immediately suspicious, asking what business it is of his. Julian claims he is just curious since Hayden was once his teacher. Hearing this, her hands tremble. She tightly grips her sword in anger. How dare you say that? She furiously demands to know his business. He intentionally triggered her. Now he needs to smooth things over. But the heavy office door suddenly swings open, cutting their conversation short. An attendant calls Ren inside. She quickly turns and gives a cold goodbye. She coldly snaps that she hopes to never see his face again. But then the messenger calls Julian in too. Talk about awkward. Julian acts completely unbothered, smiling as he suggests they go together. They really should get along as students under the exact same master. However, they do not. With a freezing glare, Rena snaps back that their past connection is dead. She warns him to never speak that name. Meanwhile, Julian is sweating. He is about to face his absolute favorite game character while wearing his betrayer's face. The sheer irony is thrilling but terrifying. Soon, they arrive at the office. Inside the Imperial Secretary's office, a high-ranking gentleman welcomes them with a smile. He praises Julian for his legendary beast defeat. Defeating the two-horned demon was massive. Rena interrupts. She demands to know where her master went, only to find Reich already departed the area. He left her a new assignment, and Julian must go along. Rena freezes. The outraged blonde demands to know why she must team up with a shameless traitor. Her master specifically requested Imperial backup since the upcoming task is extremely dangerous. Since Julian was already in the palace, he got tapped. They must investigate the capital's dark slums. Julian immediately questions the dirty destination. Why should noble warriors crawl through such disgusting gutters? Rumors are spreading. Demonic beasts are appearing there, but the locals refuse any direct imperial interference. This makes it a perfect task for two individuals who are semi-affiliated with the crown. They are tied to the royal family, but not officially. The slums are highly hostile. Outcasts and refugees who were rejected by the empire reside in those alleys. They hate the crown. Sending neutral figures is the only smart move. If Rena outperforms Julian, her path to claim the legendary sword title opens wide. She could easily succeed as the next holy swordsman. Julian is quite annoyed. This is hardly an ideal task, but as a royal lapdog, he must obey. He accepts. Rena instantly refuses, showing a bold defiance he deeply envies. But the secretary quickly reminds her that her master personally arranged this mission. Going against her beloved teacher's final wishes would be a massive mistake. A heavy silence falls over the room. Finally, Rena quietly relents. She agrees. Watching her stay tense, Julian starts analyzing the situation. As Hayden's direct disciple, she will definitely try to keep him locked down. Her main objective is ensuring he does not cause any trouble. Currently, he simply lacks the raw power to fight her off. He desperately needs a miracle. If only he had a magic stone matching his exact mana. Suddenly, Rena's necklace catches his undivided attention. Unable to resist, he asks about the beautiful gemstone. Rena coldly explains it is a rare moonstone, Its deep luster is absolutely mesmerizing. It radiates the precise, rare energy he has been desperately seeking for months. Reaching his hand closer, Julian can feel the powerful magnetic aura pulling him. Angry, the blonde quickly pulls back. Julian stammers that he was only looking at it. But in those fleeting seconds, he felt a genuine resonance deep inside. The key to his survival is right before his eyes. He must act. He visits a high-end jewelry shop, asking the owner for a moonstone. Unfortunately, these gems are incredibly scarce, almost impossible to find on the market. Only legendary collectors possess them. Hearing this, Julian's face turns grim. His visible annoyance terrifies the merchant. The poor man quickly offers a solution. He promises to search his contacts. Julian sighs, explaining his desperate situation. The merchant vows to scour the entire kingdom. Soon, the day arrives. The mission is officially starting, but those vital stones are still completely missing. Julian dreads Renan noticing his incomplete sword as she confidently takes the lead. But Julian quickly warns her that she is heading the wrong way, earning a sharp glare. These slums are packed with illegally built structures, making normal navigation impossible. Relying on maps here is highly unsafe. Still, the stubborn blonde clings to hers. She prefers a map over his words. Honestly, he can actually see her point. But the eastern slums are an absolute nightmare for any newcomer. Even the game developers admitted this zone is brutal. Rena is highly determined, completely refusing to fall for what she believes is a trap. She suspects this traitor wants to sabotage the current holy swordsman disciple. With absolute confidence, she proudly declares that she is completely different. She will definitely become the next holy swordsman. Julian nervously watches her, knowing this mission will be anything but easy. A heated argument immediately breaks out between them over which path to follow. Getting rather suspicious, Renat demands to know if Julian has ever actually been here before. Li Xiu definitely had, but admitting that would completely ruin his current disguise. She asks how he could possibly know the correct way without any real experience. Smiling, he claims it is just his intuition, prompting the blonde to suggest they split up. But Julian reminds her they have strict imperial orders to travel together. Unless, of course, she values Haydenreich over the entire empire itself. Absolutely furious, the proud girl warns him to never mention her legendary master's name again. She is so consumed by pure rage that her hands are visibly trembling. Deep down, though, the female warrior knows Julian is actually stronger. She has heard far too many people compare them, which heavily weighs on her troubled mind. A constant echo in her mind reminds her that he would have finished this already. Yet her conviction to become the successor remains absolutely unshaken. Shaking off her thoughts, Renat suddenly notices a pretty worrying detail. The local street signs showing the way are incredibly confusing. Already fully aware of this, Julian just smiles, talk about a perfect smug moment. The blonde is completely lost because her map does not match the signs. Soon they are walking in endless circles, returning to the same spot. Suddenly, a shady-looking man with a scar calls out, asking if they are completely lost. This guy, Ben, has zero intention of guiding them for free, though. He demands a free drink in return, knowing her famous noble name means a massive payout. The shady guide thinks he hit the jackpot, and honestly, can you blame him? But Ben has zero interest, though the name does ring a faint bell for Julian. He cannot place the face immediately, so the man cannot be anyone important. Either way, Ben leads the two adventurers straight toward a rundown local tavern. Ben orders a round of drinks from the tavern keeper, who eyes the pair very suspiciously. Wiping a glass, the owner slowly asks where they came from to gauge their wealth. Upon hearing their noble origin, he boldly charges them a ridiculous 30 nars per drink. Ben grins, warning them that everything in these slums gets pretty expensive. But as Renat calmly pulls out some coins, she completely brushes off his warning. In fact, she finds the steep price to be incredibly cheap, making the bartender stare in shock. His eyes practically pop at her heavy gold coins, classic wealthy noble behavior. Family shoving the bar owner into a corner, the thief tells him to spike the order. He wants their drinks spiked so he can easily rob them once they pass out. The bartender does exactly as he is told, pouring out 3 massive mugs. Renee raises her mug to take a sip, completely unaware of the danger. But Julian stops her just in time, calmly staring down into the dark liquid. With a cold glare, he asks the owner if he added something extra inside. Panic sets in and Ben nervously stammers, asking what he means by that. To test him, Julian slides the mug across the counter and offers him first sip. Either he drinks it now, or the swordsman forces it down his throat. Annoyed, Renee tells Julian to quit causing such a scene. The moment she speaks Julian's name, the owner's face goes pale with sudden recognition. He asks how on earth the Imperial watchdog ended up in his dirty pub. Ben sweats nervously, but he knows his thugs are waiting close by. His personal guard is made up of the absolute worst scum in the slums. Sensing the heavy tension, these brutal back-alley enforcers slowly begin to surround the table. Meanwhile, Ben quietly slips his hand inside his coat, gripping a hidden hilt. The landlord is ready to fight, but Julian is entirely out of patience. Their time is officially up, he warns them, already shifting into a battle stance. Before the thugs can even move, Julian strikes with blinding speed. He grabs the first attacker by the neck, choking him out instantly. Another lunges with a blade, but Julian effortlessly slips past the strike. The thugs drop one by one, completely unable to process his movements. Seeing the chaos, Renee draws her sword to join the battle. Now the rest of the gang freezes, terrified to take another step. Julian calmly points out that starting a fight in this rundown neighborhood is a massive mistake. The cold edge of his sword now rests directly against Ben's neck. From their reactions, it is obvious that every person here answers to Ben. Since he runs the place, Julian orders him to call off his remaining henchmen. Call them off now, and trust me, they better listen before things get ugly. Anyone who resists will end up shattered, just like that spiked drink. Trembling with deep fear, a dark purple aura leaks from the thief. His goons prepare to strike, but Ben frantically screams for them to stop. Terrified of the swordsman, his men turn around and bolt. Now, if the bartender is willing to talk, Julian offers a deal. Surrender peacefully or face a far worse fate out in these streets. The choice is entirely yours, Ben, but your time is rapidly running out. Julian demands an answer one final time, asking if he prefers life or death. With absolutely no options left, Ben drops his weapon and raises his hands. Julian always knew this guy was sketchy, but having actual syndicate ties is a surprise. At the very least, they managed to squeeze out some incredibly valuable intelligence. Renee stands with her head down, feeling completely responsible for this mess. Julian can see she has lost all of her usual bright confidence. She softly asks how he knew the drinks were spiked so quickly. With a mysterious grin, the swordsman asks if she really wants to know. Renee quietly sighs, deciding that some dark secrets are better left untouched. Renee is willing to learn, even from someone she genuinely despises. It is a noble trait. Though honestly, things would be much easier without all that thick, heavy hatred between them. That is when Julian explains how his advanced mana sensing actually works. It allowed him to immediately pick up on the murderous intent in that bar. Sensing the danger, he had quietly cast his detection spell before even stepping inside. He felt the raw hostility vibrating through the patron's magical energy. It works on a simple principle, echoing around the room just like a bat's radar. Only master mages usually pull this off, but his massive mana pool makes it simple. Even with that answer, Renee still has doubts. She wonders why he prioritized asking Ben about daily slum life over the actual demon location. Their job is to hunt monsters, not interview the local residents. Julian tells her that is precisely why, then asks if she knows about demonization. She nods, explaining it is a dark phenomenon they all study. It happens when the corrupting remnants of Barbados latch onto living hosts. Usually beasts turn first, humans remain safe. Plus, the protective resonance stones here should block any external threat. That means the only possible hosts are the poor residents themselves. Drawing on his game knowledge, Julian already suspected this dark possession. Yet for Renee, such a tragic horror is almost impossible to believe. He explains that 3 different families bought fever medicine just last week. High fever, it is the first sign of demonization. Despite his evidence, she remains highly skeptical as night begins to fall. By sunset, she grows much more cheerful, pointing out they have only one house left. Since they found absolutely nothing so far, things are looking pretty good. But don't get too comfortable just yet, because their luck is about to run out. Knock knock, Julian raps loudly on the final door. A man with sinister, blood-red eyes swings the door open. Though not a definite symptom, his guarded stance immediately raises alarms. Worse, a terribly familiar scent hits Julian's nose, matching his previous mission. Demonic fluids, the unmistakable bitter stench fills the air. Keeping his cool, the young man calmly tries to introduce himself. The moment the resident hears they are with the shut eyes, his face twists. "Get lost," the man yells, trying to slam the door. Julian blocks it with his foot, shoves the old man back, and forces his way inside. Renee is shocked, arguing that he should have at least tried to explain first. In his eyes, however, his naive partner is playing a very dangerous game. And honestly, being that soft in a place like this is a death sentence. Standing in the dark room, Renee is incredibly anxious about breaking in without a warrant. But Julian remains calm, knowing the imperial court only values quick results. Their intel states the old man should only be living with his son. 3 plates, the table is clearly set for a trio. Sweating bullets, the old man stammers that they simply have a guest over today. To check the food, Julian picks up a spoon and slowly stirs the warm soup. It is unnaturally thick, making him realize the old man drugged the meal. He used a sleeping draught, and that guest is almost certainly a hidden demon. Locked behind that door, Renee stands in absolute awe of Julian's sharp mind. Speechless, panic taking over, the old man suddenly charges straight toward the door, screaming for his son to run as he grabs a key to unlock the padlock. The door swings open, he begs his son to run, suddenly. The massive shadow of a beast looms, instantly dragging the screaming old man away. Despair behind the wood, a massive demon waits. Renee draws her sword. She wonders if a human really became this horrifying beast. If so, it has to die. Renee strikes, aiming directly for the horrific demon's eyes, but the beast swats her away with brutal speed. Fortunately, she recovers. It is not fatal. Julian stares at Renee's sword, the very one she wielded before her awakening. That explains her question about Mana earlier. It is clear this fight is too deadly for her. The young man steps in front of her. Annoyed, Renee barks that she needs no protection. Drawing his weapon, Julian tells her this is his duty. He cannot let the holy swordsman's precious student get slaughtered. The problem is, his legendary moonlight sword is incomplete, but keeping up appearances is absolutely critical right now. As the colossal demon charges forward, our hero prepares to slay it. He quickly unleashes his newest ability to anticipate the enemy's movements and spot critical weaknesses. With a sudden flash, the monster is blinded by light, allowing Julian to slide swiftly right between its massive legs. Razor-focused, Julian realizes he has just created a perfect opening for Renee to strike, catching the beast completely off guard. The blonde warrior launches herself forward, driving straight toward the enemy, slashing hard, but the alert beast effortlessly blocks every strike. Julian desperately shouts for Renee to keep the monster fully occupied, but the blonde is struggling heavily just to stay alive. It looks impossible. Suddenly, she spots a dirty container that might save her life. Grabbing a jar of thick, sticky paste, she hurls it at the monster's face. Blinded, the groaning beast clutches its face in pain. Its vision is completely gone, leaving it disoriented, seizing the. Rena concentrates her mind, fully determined to pour an immense amount of energy into her next strike, but while she is focusing, the demon's colossal hand swings blindly, sending Rena crashing back with a heavy, painful blow. The beast managed to sniff her out while her defenses were completely down, and the blonde warrior failed to keep it distracted like Julian wanted. She feels so incredibly ashamed, believing she can never face her master again. Meanwhile, the towering demon unleashes a horrifying roar, baring its razor-sharp teeth. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out for Rena. It is Julian. She gasps, asking what he is doing, but the swordsman only offers a calm smile, praising her efforts. His crimson eyes glow as the young man prepares to unleash his powerful skill. Still dazed, the demon shakes its heavy head, wrapping its colossal arm around Rena to hoist her up. In that split second, the silver-haired swordsman spots a flawless opening, diving forward to plunge his sharp blade deep into the monster's flesh. Instantly, the demon's tight grip on Rena starts to slip, until its massive fingers fully release her. Breaking free, the resilient blonde warrior instantly seizes the opportunity to strike back. Together, the two relentless fighters leave there. The wounded beast struggles, sword held tight. Julian stands his ground, completely still. He waits until the monster's massive frame finally collapses. Rena is deeply impressed. She realizes her ally took down the beast without even using his moonlight sword. Catching her stunned reaction, he flashes a pretty smug grin. He notes that his special sword was not even necessary today. Julian feels a quiet rush of pride, loving how cool he just sounded. A bit later, they arrive safely at the towering imperial palace. Our hero feels a deep sense of relief after wrapping this up. He thinks she suspects nothing, but the blonde warrior suddenly speaks up. She tells Julian that he should take 100% of the credit. To her, she contributed absolutely nothing to the battle. He tries to protest, even though secretly he knows she really did not do much back there. Rena looks him dead in the eye and bluntly says she does not like him. Smiling, Julian jokes that she is not even trying to hide it anymore. Her master always taught her that great power demands real responsibility. She admits his victory was impressive, but how he behaves is another story. Unleashing his magic on ordinary civilians shows exactly why their master abandoned him. Having absolutely zero restraint is his problem, and he just smiles it off. He simply comments that holding back is a weapon for cowards. Angered, the warrior asks if he is calling her beloved master a coward. He shrugs it off, admitting he is not exactly a smooth talker. Since he is no fancy noble, he never had to live by strict rules. She needs to accept that people like him exist in this messy world. Rena demands to know what he is implying, but he shuts it down. He just smiles and thanks her for handing over all the credit. And honestly, you can't blame her for being totally unable to figure him out. Every true knight needs self-control, not just the wealthy lords. Suddenly, her uncle Ergen rolls up and offers her a quick ride back. She climbs in and they set off. He asks if the hunt was tiring. He wonders if she succeeded, then asks about the strange boy beside her earlier. Ergen recognizes Julian and mentions rumors of the elders being deeply worried. Apparently, they are on high alert because of the boy's reckless moves. Imagine defying the High Council like that. Classic branch family behavior, he sneers. His condescending words match exactly what Julian said about living without rules. The uncle, Ergen, warns his niece to stay far away from the boy. He calls Julian a highly dangerous threat who probably lacks real power anyway. But before he can even finish his warning, Rena cuts him off. She insists that is not true, admitting she has no proof of his character. But she knows for a fact that the young swordsman is incredibly powerful. It actually hurts her pride to admit, but he is insanely gifted. Soon the Golden Castle towers loom. Julian walks up to Captain Odwin. With a grim look, the captain demands to know what he did. Smirking sarcastically, the young man plays completely dumb and asks what she means. He immediately wonders if the local tavern owner complained about the property damage. Since he was so focused on the fight, he definitely overdid it. Odwin sighs. She complains that Julian never considers the consequences of his actions, but the young man just stares back with a completely blank expression. She notes that Ben, a wanted criminal sought by the shut eyes, suddenly turned himself. Trembling with extreme fear, the man kept muttering Julian's name over and over. This is crazy, since Julian's actual mission was only to investigate local demon sightings. Playing along, the young man sarcastically suggests the criminal had a sudden crisis of conscience. Odwin, however, is not convinced by this ridiculous excuse in the slightest. She knows he's behind this. Still, she tells him to take his pay and go. Delighted with the outcome, he gladly accepts the paper detailing his final payment. Just days ago, his entire personal savings had run completely and utterly dry. He remembers the warning email from the jeweler about his empty funds. He simply could not afford the moonlight stone he desperately needed. Hoping this new paycheck would finally cover it, he glances down and immediately freezes. The total listed for the mission was an impressive 11,000 nars. Since one nar is worth about $1, this is an incredibly high payout. Even with Miss Wren's pooled credits, this is still a massive amount of cash. Seeing his completely shocked face, Odwin assumes he is disappointed with the payout. She quickly explains the pay is lower due to his long absence. Still stunned, the protagonist looks closer at the paper. The slip is loaded with heavy registration and maintenance fees. Almost all of these charges are tied to Julian's expensive art. After all the deductions, only 900 nars actually remain. It turns out the original owner Julian was absolutely terrible with his finances. That's a massive problem. He needs serious cash to buy that moonlight stone. Left with no choice, he asks the captain for more jobs. Surprised by his sudden hustle, Odwin asks if he is broke. Unfortunately, she has no new quests. She warns him to stop wasting funds. He would not be this irritated if he had actually spent that cash. But then Odwin mentions he could buy a whole castle by selling his art. That hits him like a bolt of lightning, a brilliant idea. His backup plan is officially set. He will simply sell off all of Julian's masterpieces. Hearing this, the captain is speechless. The whole situation is just bizarre. Shortly after he departs, two mysterious hooded figures make their quiet and sudden appearance. These members of the Elders Association are discussing Julian's recent crazy battle. He managed to defeat a demon without even drawing his legendary moonlight sword. Aiden, one of the elders, smiles maliciously as he cuts the talk short. He walks toward a nearby door, leaving to handle business with his subordinates. Behind closed doors, Aiden immediately asks his servant about Julian's famous sword. Did he really kill a demon without it? The servant calmly confirms he did. Breaking out in a cold sweat, the servant mutters that it is truly monstrous. He asks if they should proceed with orders. Aiden responds with a wicked smile. Aiden orders him to proceed. He fully intends to make that monster his property. Far away at the Ed Cosmos Art Gallery, visitors quietly browse the venue. Arriving at the scene, our protagonist wonders if he can actually sell these trinkets. Right on cue, a short man greets him and introduces himself as Pio. The appraiser explains that despite the sudden request coming directly from Sir Julian, of the shut eyes, he is happy to help. The mysterious painting is completely covered by a cloth which Julian slowly pulls back to reveal. It is a stunning work of art depicting a quiet wheat field. Pyro's eyes sparkle with sudden interest. Leaning close with a magnifying glass, the appraiser carefully begins to examine the brushwork, which looks identical to the style of Corsius Vincent. The young protagonist steps closer, but Pyro suddenly declares. The painting is a fake. Julian's sharp red eyes widen in complete disbelief. Julian wonders if his own taste in art is truly that bad. He regrets not bringing another piece, though he assumed this one was incredibly valuable, since it hung right on the entrance wall, but Pyro quickly continues, saying, he has never seen a forgery of such masterclass quality, and because of that, he wants to buy it, offering 8,000 nars despite its lack of authenticity. Even so, this small profit is not nearly enough to purchase the magic stones, Pyro says. He will quickly fetch the contract, while Julian browses the gallery's grand collection. Just as the appraiser walks away, a sharp voice questions if the deal is finalized. It is Eileen. She boldly claims she is absolutely certain the artwork is genuine. Stunned to see her in the gallery, Julian asks why she is so confident. Eileen explains she came here specifically to view her cousin's newly displayed masterpiece. But as she walked past, a specific detail immediately caught her eye. She insists no other painter in the empire possesses such flawless mastery of oil. Growing highly suspicious, Julian looks back at the canvas. Eileen quickly points out that the subtle signature in the lower corner is undoubtedly authentic. The young man leans forward for a closer look, while Pyro, the corrupt appraiser, feigns absolute shock, gasping at how he could have possibly overlooked it. Julian's patience completely snaps, and trust me, you do not want to see him angry. He asks the trembling appraiser if he dared to lie, his gaze radiating pure fury. A deep purple aura of terror leaks from Pyro, right before Eileen steps in. She quickly grabs Julian's hand, pleading with him to stop and stay calm. She argues that appraisers make mistakes, as error is only natural for humans. Shocked at his own sudden violent urge, and feeling everyone's eyes, Julian calms himself and apologizes. Still, with a dangerous glare, he demands to know if the price of this painting will be adjusted now. Pyro bows deeply, trembling as he begs for mercy, explaining that if the piece is real, their small gallery cannot possibly afford its astronomical, priceless value. Julian chuckles mockingly, dropping a heavy hand onto Pyro's shoulder. Saying this is quite a massive dilemma, as he has no idea what to do with it now. Seeing Pyro weep, Eileen steps in. She knows an elite collector who buys every single work by Corsius. This seems to reassure Julian, but she wants something back, presenting two strict conditions. First, the appraiser must go entirely unpunished, a detail Julian had not considered. Second, she asks with a visible blush for his personal help with something. Since he currently has no active missions, he quickly agrees to her terms. They seal their fresh arrangement with a firm and quiet handshake. Eileen tells him not to misunderstand, she is only repaying her debt for saving both her and Julian. Meanwhile, in a dark corridor, a terrified soldier walks with a lantern, desperately trying to light the way. His legs tremble as a sound echoes through the passage. Suddenly, several glowing eyes appear in the gloom, scaring him to death. This is the exact story Eileen tells Julian as they walk through the halls of the V Academy. She explains how a soldier was attacked during his patrol, but the professors quickly dismissed the case. Still, other people have been hearing strange noises at night. More guards are targeted. Confused, Julian asks what else it could possibly be besides a ghost. Eileen believes it is a demon. Even though the academy is heavily protected against such creatures, she suspects some managed to sneak inside while the resonant stone was inactive. As they talk, a black-haired man approaches. It is Hardy Godfrey who interrupts them to ask if Eileen decided to seek outside help. He greets Julian directly, completely ignoring the girl. Eileen feels disrespected, but Hardy justifies himself by saying she brought a stranger to handle the academy's internal affairs. She fires back that she wanted someone actually competent in dealing with demons on the job. Hardy taunts her, asking if, as a member of a collateral bloodline, she shouldn't be working a bit harder. The young woman shoots back, saying he was the one who barely passed his thesis review and should focus on Writing a new one, irritated, the man says that people from collateral bloodlines like her should know their place. Things are getting seriously heated now. Tired of the bickering, Julian decides to step in. He moves forward and draws his blade, leaving Eileen completely shocked, unsure if he was offended by those insults about bloodlines or if he was just trying to defend her. Without any explanation, the swordsman suddenly strikes. Terrified, Eileen and Hardy shut their eyes tightly. Suddenly, a small stone falls on Hardy's head. Julian had sliced a hole in the ceiling, revealing a strange, glowing red light. A demon was lurking inside the corridor's walls. Quick-witted, Julian readies himself and lands a few solid hits, but a shrill scream suddenly interrupts the fight. Hardy is completely frantic, screaming that there is a demon on his back. When he looks, he is met with the sight of small red balls with terrifying faces. Julian dryly mocks him. Demons do not care about bloodlines or anything else. He adds that if Hardy truly wants to be saved, he should probably beg a collateral bloodline man to protect him right now. With a single strike, Julian obliterates the threat entirely. Immediately after, Eileen spots another threat, warning Julian that something is coming from above. High overhead, all the small demons begin merging into a massive cloud, shifting forms until they become a single demonic mass. The creature grows, its heavy shadow consuming more and more of the space. Hardy trembles in sheer terror while the girl is stunned by the beast's size. Those small spheres have officially become a massive giant monster. Julian realizes this is likely their true form, just a bunch of weaklings banding together to fight. Wearing a wicked grin, Julian says he finds all of this pretty amusing. The demon looks like a four-eyed rat with razor-sharp teeth. Opening its disgusting mouth, it charges at the warriors. The monster tries to crush Julian, but the young man easily dodges. With incredible agility, the blue light glowing from his sword grazes past the beasts. The beast lunges for another attack, failing completely. Now it is Julian's turn to strike. He swings his sword clean across the monster's face, carving deep into its skin. The massive creature shrinks instantly as the smaller, nesting demons begin falling away. Spotting this weakness, the young swordsman devises a quick plan and charges straight ahead. Coming face to face with his adversary, Julian unleashes a barrage of merciless sword strikes. Every cut is graceful and blindingly swift. Eileen conjures a magic barrier against flying debris. Behind her shield, she watches the remaining fragments of the monster break apart. The creature crumbles. In seconds, the proud swordsman sheathes his blade. Meanwhile, the mage is already cleaning up the mess, raising a golden gem to cast. She casts a mending spell to repair the shattered walls, then questions Julian. Eileen wonders how he located the hidden demons. Julian remembers seeing a strange color. He saw it behind Hardy using his emotion-reading ability, but chooses to keep quiet. Offering a simple smile, she speaks. Eileen always thought he despised lower-status people. She believed he looked down on collateral bloodlines, yet he seems to support them. Julian is completely baffled. When on Earth did that ever happen? Eileen brings up the time he insulted her, calling her a mere donation halfling. But seeing him defend a collateral bloodline now changes her perspective. It actually reminds her of the kinder Julian from their old academy days. Talk about awkward, his old trash talk actually deeply scarred the poor girl. Eileen adds that nobody dares mistreat Julian because they are terrified of his power. But for her, facing harsh discrimination is just a normal, everyday part of life. Julian replies that regardless of anyone's status, their blood is exactly the same. Blood is still red, after all. He then admits his past remarks were wrong. Hearing him admit his mistake causes Eileen to blush bright red in surprise. Even if it was highly indirect, it still felt like a genuine apology to her. Flustered, she quietly thanks him, which leaves Julian feeling completely clueless. She quickly brushes it off, saying she is just thanking him for fighting. That explanation makes perfect sense to him. Meanwhile, the wall is nearly restored. In just a few more moments, her restoration magic completely finishes the job. With the demons dead, Eileen is ready to introduce Julian to the art buyer. Keeping her promise, she brings him into a massive, luxurious room filled with floating books. There, an ecstatic scholar exclaims that he never expected to lay eyes on this masterpiece. It is an incredibly rare, posthumous painting created by the legendary artist Corsius. The man admiring it is Alram Chai, the esteemed vice director of the Academy. And honestly, the man clearly possesses an expert eye, finding deep beauty in this. To Julian, the canvas looks completely plain, but Alram keeps dissecting every detail. His vivid, highly active imagination leaves our young hero feeling quite impressed. The vice director points out that the canvas radiates a profound sense of loneliness. He explains that Corsius wanted to capture the heavy suffering of his younger brother. This sibling had supported the painter financially, keeping his artistic dreams alive. An old letter confirms the work contains all of his deepest pain and isolation. Julian simply nods. He takes a quiet, slow sip from his teacup. Activating his emotion-reading vision, he studies the man across the table. An incredibly bright orange aura erupts from Alram, radiating intense denial. It is clear this academic is far more personally connected than he lets on. But he also clearly suspects him. Worried, Julian begins to sweat. He wonders if there is a flaw in the artwork, but that seems impossible, especially considering how Eileen and the vice director himself reacted. The piece is definitely authentic, so what is making him so suspicious? Breaking out in a cold sweat, Julian starts to feel pretty anxious. The heavy silence is broken by Alram, who addresses Julian directly. He asks if Julian actually knows the piece, mocking him slightly. He says Julian just wants quick cash, though Alram will still buy. But he prefers negotiating with someone who actually understands its true worth. Hearing this cold remark, Julian realizes he might get totally ripped off. He decides to take a massive gamble using his secret knowledge. He reveals he knows Corsius died right after finishing this masterpiece. The extreme value, he explains, is directly tied to the creator's death. Hearing this sudden revelation, the vice director actually bursts out laughing. But he confirms the truth and apologizes for doubting Julian's expertise. It seems the kid is quite well versed. Finally, they can talk business. Holding up 4 fingers, Alram offers 400,000 nars. That is a solid chunk of change, but Julian decides to push for more. He argues that since the art was only recognized post-mortem, it deserves more. It should have a premium. Without a moment of hesitation, Alram shrugs. He bumps the offer straight to 500,000 nars. That is an insane jump, leaving the young man completely speechless. See, since nars currency matches the value of a regular dollar. This painting is worth a staggering 500 million won. Alram snaps the dazed boy back to reality. Smiling, Julian nods. He says the vice director truly recognizes true art, so they have a deal. The old gallery warned him they could never match this price. They were totally right. Julian's eye for value is honestly incredible. A bit later, a sharp knock echoes on the vice director's door. It is Eileen politely asking if he summoned her. Alram, busy admiring his brand new painting, gently tells the young woman to take a seat. He brings up the hallway incident, and the mage assures him it is resolved. It seems all of his stress was completely for nothing. Pouring her hot tea, he asks if she faced any real danger. Thinking of Hardy, she decides to keep quiet, claiming everything was fine. Regardless, the vice director apologizes. Then, his tone turns deadly serious. He demands absolute secrecy, revealing a dark theory about the attack. He suspects the Aurora Society is behind it, leaving Eileen completely stunned. Why would they attack the Academy? Alram admits he is not sure. But the evidence is clear. They struck right when the magic failed. The deactivated resonance stone gave them the perfect window to strike. They must keep this secret from the students to prevent mass panic. Clutching her cup, Eileen trembles. The Aurora Society is a demonic cult. Just the thought of these fanatics targeting the academy sends shivers down her spine. But Alram quickly reassures her, promising that guard patrols are being doubled. He promised to protect the students. Then he mentioned that last time she had Julian's help. Hearing his name made her eyes widen instantly. She suddenly remembered their urgent meeting to sell the artwork. Eileen wanted to thank the boy for his help, but he was gone. He left. The director confirmed the swordsman fled right after getting paid. Rumor was he desperately wanted to buy several rare moonlight stones. This news shocked the young mage. She bolted right out. She left the confused director alone, muttering about how busy today was. Arriving at the jewelry shop, the merchant bowed, apologizing. Annoyed, Eileen snapped. He had promised her there would be enough. But the clerk explained Julian bought way more than expected. Worse yet, restocking those rare stones would take a very long time. Desperate, Eileen explained she absolutely needed them for her research thesis. Completely lost, she immediately burst into tears, not knowing what to do. Meanwhile, our main character was feeling pretty satisfied. He headed to the Twilight Flame Forge, asking a blacksmith to craft a weapon with those gems. He wants a sword that looks as if it were bathed in moonlight. The irritated blacksmith argues that it is just decorative art, not a weapon. His pride would never allow him to forge such a useless toy. But get this, Julian insists the weapon is meant for actual combat. Slamming his fist down, the blacksmith yells that it is a luxury item. He fumes that Julian dared to bring a design that is not even a weapon. If he wanted luxury toys, he came to the wrong place. This forge only makes real weapons for elite soldiers like Sir Reich. Julian calmly explains to Ruger Orland that he plans to engrave rare monomeridians onto the blade. Ruger scoffed at the idea. No one could possibly fight with a sword made of fragile gems. As Julian ponders this, a young woman steps forward to apologize. She explains they stamp their name on every single weapon they produce. If the sword breaks, their hard-earned reputation is instantly ruined. Julian says it is a shame. He wanted his weapon made in the same place. As Hayden Reichs, still, he offers a handshake, saying he gets it. He understands, but guarantees he will make sure the blade never breaks. Ruger points a finger, demanding if he truly believes that's possible. Julian confidently says yes, challenging the blacksmith to test him. If the smith doubts him, he is welcome to test his skills. He drops a heavy bag of gold, asking them to forge it first. He is willing to pay way more than it's worth, one condition. If the sword breaks during testing, they keep the gold and gems. The blacksmith agrees, but if it shatters, the deal is dead. The deal is completely forgotten. A few days later, Julian returns. He goes back to the smithy and sees his brand new weapon. The master smiths had worked day and night on the blade. The helper, still highly skeptical, asks if he's sure this is a weapon. But as soon as Julian touches it, his perfect sword technique activates. The day of the trial finally arrives under a bright, sunny sky, and a massive crowd gathers. Onlookers watch in anticipation. The forge girl asks Julian if he wants them gone. But he simply smiles and declines. Right then, Ruger approaches the young swordsman. Calling out to him, he presents a piece of armor specially made for the trial. No ordinary gear, this is a solid block of steel 1 centimeter thick. The challenge is simple. He wants the young man to try and slice right through it. Julian chuckles at the sight. After all, there is no fun in an easy fight. Nearby, the master blacksmith watches, admitting the young man is the real deal. Still, he doubts the moonlight sword can survive this brutal impact. Wielding the weapon, Julian instantly senses a brand new feeling. A strange sensation flows, aligning a path of pure mana inside the blade. One quick, blinding motion, and he delivers a devastating strike. The crowd gasps. The blade is absolutely flawless, without a single scratch. Even the attendant is left completely speechless by the results. Julian is actively channeling the wild energy, keeping it locked to the blade. Now watch closely. This is the true force of the legendary Moonlight Sword. With zero effort, the blacksmith's masterpiece gets shattered. Shards scatter everywhere. Julian looks at them with a smug grin. He asks the blacksmiths what they will do now as intense blue energy surges. The blinding aura is so intense that it illuminates the entire area. His flawed sword technique finally evolves into the completed Moonlight Sword. Unlocking this incredibly powerful skill brings a proud smile to the young man's face. Despite absorbing all that raw power, the blade remains absolutely flawless. The brilliant glow radiates immense power. Our hero finally succeeded. Feeling quite embarrassed by the display, Ruger slowly walks over. He admits he underestimated him. Julian calmly sheathes the weapon. He grins, noting a quick demonstration is worth 1,000 empty words. Ruger warns him that a broken sword will ruin the forge's reputation. Julian simply smiles, promising to use his powerful new weapon very wisely. Watching from a safe distance, Reich approaches the shattered fragments of the armor. Analyzing the pieces, he realizes the cuts are incredibly clean. Looking rather uneasy, he wonders what Julian's true goal is, and honestly, so do I. Standing right by his side, Reina curiously asks her master about the young swordsman. The old master replies that he can still feel the boy's intense aura lingering. It is honestly impressive to see a sword path so perfectly honed just for slicing. He regrets missing the strike. Sensing Reina's worry, he looks at her. He asks if the young swordsman has been bothering her lately. Since they just went on a mission together, he wants to know how things went. The disappointed girl admits that her partner was undeniably very strong. But Reich presses her, asking if she noticed anything strange. Confused by the interrogation, she simply repeats his question back. Her master asks directly if Julian could be affiliated with the Dawn Society. Meanwhile, our protagonist is absolutely thrilled with his massive success. The blade glows brighter than ever, packed with freshly unlocked power. Inwardly, I can feel that his power is growing stronger day by day. He is slowly turning into Julian, but he cannot forget his main goal. He refuses to stay trapped in a game character's body forever. But getting back home, incredibly brutal. To make it happen, this current world actually has to reach its final chapter. The game must end with Hayden stopping the demon god. Plus, he has to keep the real Julian from murdering the main hero. Right now, the story is hitting the arc where the Dawn Society emerges. They are a dangerous cult, desperate to resurrect the evil Barbatus. That makes them deadly enemies of Hayden Reich and Rainer Ronbell. Especially for the girl whose father was brutally killed by this cult. Julian hoped to ally with Hayden, but that is definitely easier said than done. He considers joining the Dawn Society for intel, just like the original Julian. But he has no clue how to reach them until his instinct skill suddenly flares. Something is off. Is it just his head or a real warning? Keeping his guard up, the young man decides to call out. He demands they step out, claiming he can feel their trace of mana. A figure steps out from the shadows, and Julian lets out a dry laugh. He recognizes her instantly. A woman. Have they crossed paths before? She stands there with vibrant green hair and pink eyes, a companion lurking behind. That is when it clicks. He remembers this girl, a dark mage. She is a bishop of the Dawn Society, Alina de Michichel. He also knows exactly who her companion is, the mortal enemies of Hayden. Laughing, she realizes this young noble easily saw through her disguise. Revealing her face, she smiles and says she expected nothing less from Julian. Julian plays it cool, saying he has a pretty good idea why they came. Smirking, Alina admits that makes their meeting a whole lot simpler. She tells him it is finally time to give them his final answer. But in reality, he has absolutely no clue, total bluff. Trying to buy some time, Julian claims he still needs to think it over. But the Dark Mage shuts that down. After all, he reached out first. He was the one begging to join the Dawn Society. Julian is quietly panicking. Cleaning up the original Julian's messes has basically become a daily routine. But he knows it does not really matter which route he chooses here. In every single ending, Julian is destined to be crushed by Hayden anyway. Down the line, Julian would seek demonic power and join this cult. But that does not mean he has to sign his soul away this very second. He tells the duo there should not be a strict time limit on his choice. The mage agrees, but warns that her cult might take his hesitation the wrong way. They might think the imperial family's lapdog is setting a trap. Julian sees the deep suspicion in her eyes. This is getting incredibly dangerous. If he jumps in now and the imperial court finds out, game over. That would be a direct shortcut to the absolute worst ending imaginable. And if Hayden ever discovers he is working with the Dawn Society, they would clash instantly, and one of them would end up dead on the spot. If that happens, he will be stuck inside this virtual nightmare forever. He racks his brain, looking for an escape, while a Lelener warns him. He already knows far too much, making it incredibly dangerous to back out now. The mysterious hooded man chimes in, declaring he won't let him escape so easily. This hooded warrior is actually a society senior, representing elite combat power. They are far stronger than typical knights. Dropping his hood, he reveals his face. He is Pellar, the Iron Fists, and he threatens to crush Julian completely. He demands Julian make a choice immediately, gesturing to a jagged scar on his face. The brute claims he still feels the burning pain from the wound Julian once dealt. Our protagonist realizes this is just another vengeful victim Julian left behind. This keeps happening lately, but to keep up his villainous act, he smiles. He mockingly apologizes, claiming he never remembers the weaklings he defeats. This drives the Iron Fists mad, and our protagonist starts to worry. He silently notes that maybe he is playing the villain a bit too well. In a flash, Pellar vanishes and instantly reappears right behind the swordsman. He whispers in his ear, eager to see how long that smug attitude lasts. Suddenly, the passive skill exceptional swordsman activates just in time. Julian manages to block Pellar's punch, but he made a mistake. He drew his old iron sword by mistake, completely forgetting the moonlight blade. It was pure habit, but he must hold off this powerhouse for now. He has to survive, and the two clash in a brutal, fast-paced melee. Julian blocks every heavy attack, starting to swing back as his opponent dodges. This is getting way too dangerous. The young man needs space. He needs a brief moment to recover, but his opponent is relentless. He lunges forward with all his speed, windmilling a heavy punch straight at the boy. The attack lands flush, sending the young swordsman flying from the immense impact. The sheer force of the blow rattles him, leaving him near unconsciousness. Pellar laughs, mockingly asking how it feels to get beaten by a weakling. Lying on the ground, the desperate protagonist reaches for his special weapon. Anger flares as he wonders why he must keep cleaning up another man's mess. Pellar is quite surprised to see the young swordsman is still able to move. The boy's rage reaches its absolute peak, and a sudden change occurs. His unique skill, Open Eyes, triggers instantly as he grips his sword. A terrifying scarlet aura erupts from his body, shocking the nearby enemies. They sense a heavy shift in the air, realizing his blade is the threat. Sensing the immense danger from the weapon, Pellar decides he must destroy it. But before the brute can react, the swordsman closes the distance instantly. He unleashes a lightning-fast strike, catching his opponent completely off guard. Pellar looks down to find his arm severely sliced, yet Julian remains cold. A sinister smile plays on his lips as the enraged giant charges again. Ignoring his bleeding arm, he throws a massive punch that whistles past Julian. But the boy easily maneuvers around it, delivering another precise slash. He slices his foe first, forcing agonizing screams from the gritting warrior. The battered warrior commands Julian to back off while preparing a desperate counter. The swordsman moves with hypnotic speed, appearing to be everywhere at once. Dodging every frantic lunge, he lands a devastating counter on the giant. Brutal fist strike, Julian's raw power is absolutely terrifying to watch. He is a monster, his red eyes gleam with dangerous confidence. He feels the thrill of watching fresh wounds split wide open. Seeing the raw terror on his enemy's face brings Julian a sick satisfaction. His open eyes ability only peaks when his emotions run completely wild. Writhing in pain, Peller throws away his pride and begs him to stop. But this peculiar power has a side effect of fueling extreme aggression. He refuses to hold back, slashing his helpless enemy over and over again. Once done, the young swordsman mocks his opponent's useless title. Mocking the title iron fists, the brutal swordsman grabs the boy by the hair. The victim begs for his life, but Julian shows absolutely no mercy. Suddenly, warm hands touch his neck. Eleanor softly asks him to stop. As she gets closer, the crimson glow in his eyes slowly fades away. He gasps for air, a miracle. His life has barely been spared. Snapping back to his senses, Julian is horrified by his own brutality. The power alters personalities, but for him, the rage is just overwhelming. Realizing the danger, he tries to laugh it off, blaming the other guy. Eleanor aims her wand and nods, but Julian calls her out. She stood by and watched the entire time, knowing exactly what would happen. While healing her partner, the mage confesses she wanted him to get beaten. Seeing Julian fight actually made her respect him a lot more. Activating her mark of beauty, she suggests they form an alliance. She reminds him that he has absolutely nothing to lose. Julian places a hand on her shoulder, agreeing to think it over. When the swordsman passes Peller, the beaten boy shakes with absolute terror. Annoyed, the mage realizes her charms have zero effect on Julian. She turns to Peller, asking if he noticed anything strange about him. He weakly admits that the swordsman is far stronger than expected. Eleanor knows his memory loss is fake, but wants to keep it quiet. Hiding this from the other bishops will give her a serious advantage. He blushes. Under her spell, Peller agrees to keep his mouth shut. Her strange mind-bending magic seems completely useless against Julian. Back in his room, Julian paces. The tension is incredibly high. He survived because of his eyes, but knows he cannot rely on them. The power is too unstable. Worse, the Dawn Society is dangerous. He is stuck right between a rock and a hard place. Hayden will eliminate him if he joins, ruining his chance at returning home. Yet exposing the group means their dangerous members will instantly hunt him down. Closing his eyes, Julian desperately searches for a way out of this. After weighing his options, joining the Dawn Society seems like his best bet. By infiltrating them, he can gather crucial intel from the inside. Stopping the resurrection of the Demon King is his only ticket back home. Later, Julian arrives at the Grand Genel Monastery, Temple of the Sun. It is the most powerful religious order on the continent of Rosenda. He walks the main hall. Instantly, onlookers begin to whisper. The crowd gets tense seeing a known atheist walking around, watching his every move. They look at him with pure disdain, thinking he might be there to purge someone. A nervous priest approaches, asking what brings the young man here. Julian calmly answers that he is actually here to see the Supreme Abbot. This answer makes the priest even more anxious, since no visitors were expected today. Right then, a nun approaches them out of nowhere. She offers to guide Julian and quietly asks him to follow her. Clearly, she was sent by the exact person Julian came to find. As he tries to read her face, she notes he arrived early. Eleanor drops her disguise, admitting she thought he wouldn't come. Seeing a high-level disguise spell undone right in front of him is quite impressive. Julian greets her, amazed that the Dawn Society hid their headquarters in this massive monastery. Before long, the two of them arrive at a massive set of doors. With a dead serious look, Alina warns that the archbishop expects complete respect. Julian playfully jokes that he will think about it. Still, he can tell she is way more cautious than during their last meeting. Her extreme caution only proves one thing: their big boss is right behind that door. The second they step inside, the entire room erupts into quiet murmurs. From his high throne, the leader asks if he is truly the famous Julian. This masked archbishop wears a strange smile that does not inspire much respect at all. That makes sense, since Tenorin was once just a common farmer. A holy relic chose him to lead. Alina nudges Julian to kneel. Show some respect. Talk about zero fear. He honestly just asks why he should kneel. Stunned, Alina asks if he even wants to join, demanding he show loyalty. But Julian is not here to place his blind faith in anyone. He is only here to build a solid, equal partnership. He has zero plans to convert, so he plays it incredibly bold. With full confidence, he declares that they all want his influence, just as much as he needs the backing of the god they serve. The followers gasp at his sheer arrogance, but Tenorin demands total silence. He points out that for a real partnership, all this useless drama is unnecessary. He then orders everyone, except Alina and Julian, to get out. The nervous guards obey, though they clearly hate leaving their boss alone. Turning to Julian, the archbishop notes that his cocky reputation is well earned. Suddenly, he steps right down from his throne. He slaps a hand on Julian's shoulder, laughing that he actually likes his attitude. He tells Julian to follow him because there is something he must see. As they walk, Tenorin explains this secret chamber is strictly off-limits to outsiders. Only high-ranking bishops can enter the vault holding their sacred relic. The leader admits he cannot just let Julian walk away empty-handed today. Leaving now would make them enemies, but having him as an ally is intriguing. So besides a simple partnership, he has a much better offer. Wait, a bishop, he is practically handing over the keys to the kingdom. Alina gasps in complete shock, but her boss is dead serious about this. He defends his actions. He claims he is only giving the young man what he deserves. And she has no right to question his choices. Ashamed, the girl bows. Deeply quiet, the archbishop then asks Julian if he is finally satisfied. Julian nods. Tenorin offers to show his guest something truly incredible. Since he traveled all this way, he gets to see their greatest secret. Inside a massive chamber, a mysterious chalice overflows with a thick red liquid. Julian instantly recognizes the item. It is the legendary sacred relic. The very artifact that chose a simple farmer to lead the entire Dawn society. It can manifest the sleeping, horrific power of Barbatus into physical form. The archbishop raises his hand toward the pool of blood-red fluid, pulling the liquid upward and shaping it into a dark horn for Julian. Using this powerful relic, Tenorin easily materializes a raw demon horn. Julian is stunned. He has never actually witnessed a horn being created. Knowing what this artifact can do, his mind begins to drift. He is completely lost in thought. Tenorin has to snap him back. The swordsman quickly plays along, claiming this exact horn is the key to his entire mission. With a very suspicious smile, Tenorin offers him a shocking deal. If he needs it so badly, he can simply keep this newly created horn. Highly suspicious, Julian accepts the artifact, wondering why it was gifted so easily. Usually, creating a single horn like this requires sacrificing multiple powerful demons. Despite the extreme cost, the power it grants is absolutely absurd. Tenorin eagerly watches, wanting to see Julian wield this power. Even imagining that the young warrior might eventually surpass the holy swordsman. But Julian knows the true cost. Power like this never comes free. These cursed horns are the source used to spawn humanoid demons. Instead of just borrowing monster strength, the user eventually becomes one. And honestly, you cannot blame him for wanting to avoid that dark fate. Eleanor steps forward, calling out to the archbishop in a low whisper. She gently warns him that it is way too early to gift this horn. The boy has not even sworn his full allegiance to their secret society. Since the horn powers their entire faction, other members will get furious. They think they are whispering, but Julian overhears every single word. He decides to step in, politely offering to return the dangerous artifact, stating that a free gift was never the reason he visited them anyway. The Archbishop laughs it off, calling Julian far more considerate than he expected. Since it will take time to convince Eleanor, he proposes another arrangement. He asks Julian for a quick favor. The crafting materials are very rare. They can only be harvested from the hearts of 3 horned demons. So he requests that Julian hunt down and bring him more stones. Hunting such monsters might alarm the Empire, but the Archbishop promises protection. A few days later, a massive steam train waits patiently on the tracks. Julian stands nearby, his mind completely flooded with doubts. The cult welcomed him instantly, even raising him to the rank of bishop. Yet right after joining, they ordered him to hunt a 3-horned beast. He strongly suspects the organization has planted dangerous spies everywhere. The imperial court is far too massive to be called a mere organization. Instead, they act like an entire nation. Heron sits directly across from Julian, remarking how lucky they are to have public transit connecting different cities. Right now, the two are traveling to Bernardin for the upcoming Ascension Festival. It is hosted by the Sun God Church, and Heron is representing his family. Specifically the Kryart household, trying to break the ice, the young noble suggests that Julian join the festivities once his current mission is over. Julian plays along for now, replying that he will try to attend if time allows. Yet he can easily tell the young noble is still absolutely terrified of him. When their train finally pulls into Bernardin, the two youths say their goodbyes. Before parting, though, Heron warns Julian to avoid provoking a man named Margarl. This noble was close to the Highlands family, which Julian recently wiped out. Annoyed, Julian sighs at yet another headache left behind by his body's former owner. But he has to keep his focus on the real goal, hunting down demons. A bit later, a red-haired official named Orinil glares at Julian, demanding he postpone his hunt. Sweating, Julian asks what the man means by that, and Orinil clarifies that they are currently restricting forest entry strictly to members of the Sun God Church. This is to prepare for the festival, but Julian warns a 3-horned demon is lurking in those woods, meaning the entire celebration could end in disaster. Orinil dismisses this, saying that if the beast hasn't attacked yet, there's no issue. In a cold, threatening tone, Julian asks if he will defy imperial court orders. The redhead snaps back, saying that is precisely why he is politely asking the young man to postpone the raid, since the festival is this city's ultimate pride. It would be completely unacceptable to ruin the celebration over an inactive monster. So if the celebration gets ruined because of some reckless hunt, Julian must take full personal responsibility for the entire fallout. Since the event is a week away, he suggests the boy just enjoy the festivities. Julian just stares back with a highly mocking, silent look on his face. Suddenly, a sweet young voice calls out, and a precious little girl appears. It's Tarina, and she's searching for her father, Orinil, looking highly curious. The child approaches, asking who this handsome man is. Panicking, Orinil immediately warns his little daughter to stay far away from Julian and run to him right now. Julian is stunned, realizing the official genuinely believes he would harm a sweet kid. Checking Orinil's emotional aura, Julian sees it turn purple, showing intense terror. Ending the talk, Julian mentions they can finish this chat another day, then steps out of the office, leaving the father and daughter in peace. Running a hand through his hair, Julian takes a deep breath and meets two fellow allies in the corridor, who eagerly ask how his meeting went. Julian tells them that Orinil is unbelievably stubborn, making it impossible to stop the mission's postponement. Hearing this, one of his allies asks if they should recall their scouts from the Puran forest, but Julian instructs them to keep those units positioned right there. He is certain the festival won't happen as they are planning. Growing tense, the two ask what Julian actually means by that ominous claim. Julian explains that Bernardin is where most players encounter their very first. Bernardin is the city where players face their first real test. A three-horned demon is no ordinary monster, meaning the upcoming festival is in serious danger. It could easily end in total chaos, because more horns on a demon mean far greater strength. Besides wielding terrifying unique abilities, a beast of this caliber is always given a proper name. This three-horned beast, Hamelin, is a parasite that warps its entire territory. Entering its domain triggers a labyrinth of deadly, poisonous swamps. Even if someone somehow escapes that trap, the beast immediately launches a brutal psychological attack. Defeating it seems impossible. Still, the young warrior waits. Sipping his coffee, Julian is positive that Hamelin has already launched its attack. He knows Sir Orinal will show up begging for help any minute now. Julian quietly enjoys the peace until a boy suddenly bursts inside. Bringing an urgent summons, he demands Julian report to the commander's mansion. Apologizing for the interruption, the messenger bows, but Julian expected this. Trembling with intense anxiety, Sir Orinal awaits the young warrior's arrival. Right on cue, our protagonist presents himself to the desperate city leader. His daughter Teresa has not woken up since last night. He pleads that even the doctors cannot find a cure, and other children are falling ill too. The poor man tries to hide his panic, but Julian immediately recognizes the symptoms. Knowing the demon has already struck, Julian listens to the bizarre explanation. It makes no sense for healthy kids to suddenly slip into deep comas like this. This is definitely the work of a demon, Sir Orinal cries out in pure despair. Julian confirms his fears, explaining that the beast Hamelin is lurking in the Puran forest. Spores rain down on the living, turning them into mindless servants. While adults are completely immune, these spores are deadly to children, knocking them unconscious. Julian delivers the grim warning: time is rapidly running out. Realizing his daughter might die, the panicked commander grabs Julian by the collar. He yells that he does not care about the festival anymore. Saving his child is all that matters. The commander wants the beast dead, prompting Julian to ask how far he will go. Begging for her life, the father promises he will do absolutely anything. Julian asks if that includes making a choice that might hurt the city of Bernardin. Sir Orinal swallows hard, shaking as he looks at the young man before him. He drops to his knees, begging and promising to take full responsibility. Listening to this, a cunning smile spreads across our protagonist's face. Julian tells the desperate father that they have a deal, and he will handle the demon. Shortly after, soldiers begin pouring massive buckets of fuel all over the forest. A soldier hesitates, wondering if burning down this beautiful place is really necessary. Julian replies that only a fool would take half measures against a threat this dangerous. Incredulous, the soldier asks if they are seriously going to burn everything. Julian confirms the plan, explaining they will not fight the demon inside its labyrinth. Instead of playing by the monster's rules, they are going to completely obliterate it. Deep down, Julian knows this cheesy strategy was the absolute easiest way to win the game. Worried about the commander's reaction, the aide questions this ruthless plan. Julian smiles, reminding him that Orinal chose saving lives over the festival. Walking away, he smiles and gives the soldiers the command to light it up. Intense flames spread rapidly, forcing the sleeping beast to wake up in a panic. A roar of fury echoes as Hamelin bursts out of the blazing inferno. Step back, Julian orders the men to stay behind him. He will handle this entirely alone, prompting instant confusion. How can he survive without help? But the warrior repeats his warning. You would only get in my way, he says, drawing his glowing steel. Julian marches directly into the fire, walking through the flames. He laughs at the unbearable heat, unfazed by the blaze. Then he stands face to face with Hamlin, the three-horned beast. Enraged, the monster slams its massive claws down, shattering the earth. Julian smoothly imbues his lunar sword with concentrated, glowing mana. A powerful, glowing aura of pure energy instantly floods the entire clearing. He sprints straight into danger. Suddenly, the creature hesitates. It cannot use its full strength, letting out a frustrated growl. Julian mocks the demon, declaring that the fire has weakened it. Now you fall, but the monster has one last trick. It erupts in blinding flames, catching the hero off guard. Dizzy and choking, he covers his face. He forgot the pollen. Hamlin's mist causes immediate nausea, paralysis, and severe confusion. Anyone breathing it in freezes, letting the demon recover its footing. Yet the swordsman just grins, raising his weapon once more. "Did you really think that would work?" he shouts through the fire. Talk about a terrible matchup. The toxic mist has absolutely zero effect. Frustrated, Hamlin shrieks, his roar shaking the burning forest. Readying a devastating blow, the hero flashes a wild smile. He is already crazy enough without any help from magic pollen. He leaps high, his blade absolutely overflowing with violent, blue energy. With one rapid, mid-air spin, he unleashes a wave of brilliant light. A thunderous explosion rocks the clearing. The battle is finally over. The giant beast lies on the dirt, its body completely severed. The soldiers rush forward, desperately checking if their hero survived. Julian calmly sheathes his blade, standing silently over the dead monster. Watching from afar, Sir Orinal keeps a tense eye on the window. He stares blankly at the smoking woods, utterly paralyzed with anxiety. Julian thanks him for his help, promising the imperial court's respect. Showing zero emotion, the hero asks if Orinal's daughter is awake. Yes, she is currently recovering, the nervous commander quietly answers. Julian reaches into his coat, pulling out a strange necklace for the girl. Imagine getting this. Orinal is completely horrified to see it is made from beast bones. Since she reacted to the pollen first, she clearly has immense potential. Her mana reserves are off the charts. She will make a great mage. Baffled, the commander asks why Julian is offering such a generous gift. Especially since they clearly despise each other, but Julian just grins. The more mages we have, the better. What is the catch? Orinal demands. Nothing, the hero insists. It is just a reward for his cooperation. Still, Orinal trembles. He is terrified the warrior knows his secret. He was allied with the very royals Julian just dragged off the throne. He turns and walks away. Behind him, the commander stands frozen in fear. Absolute disbelief, the old leader slowly picks up the mysterious artifact. Hurrying straight to his sick daughter, her bright, happy smile warms his heart. He hands over the treasure, praying it will help her heal quickly. It is amazing. The girl is instantly head over heels for the glowing necklace. Still, dark thoughts linger. He must write to the elders immediately. The association ordered him to delay Julian, but he could not risk his family. With his precious daughter so ill, he simply had no other choice. He silently begs Highlands to forgive him for putting family before revenge. Meanwhile, the train speeds away from Bernardin Station at high velocity. Safe inside a carriage, Julian grips a wooden box, letting out a heavy sigh. He won Hamlin over. Slowly, carefully, he lifts the lid of the box. A sudden, overwhelming aura floods the air, radiating from the spirit stone. Power beyond belief, he stares at it, completely lost in thought. Giving this to the Dawn Society would definitely buy him their absolute trust. But wait, is there a far better way to use this legendary item? Suddenly, the PA speaker crackles, announcing their arrival at Rondrian Station. Crowds begin flooding the train, warning him to hide the prize quickly. Just then, the sharp, elegant sound of high heels echoes down the aisle. A woman takes the seat right beside him, freezing in pure shock. Talk about absolute worst timing. Julian locks eyes with the beautiful Renée. Panic hits, he instantly slams the container shut before she can see. If Hayden catches wind of this, it's going to be a massive problem. Carrying around the remains of a demon is just begging for trouble. Sliding the box behind his bag, he laughs, asking if this is fate. The young noblewoman stares at her seat number, completely unable to believe this. He smiles, asking if she's dying to know what he's doing here. She nods silently. In response, he explains his mission in Bernardin. Then he spots a piece of fabric peeking out of her luggage. He playfully teases that the fierce knight must have had a wild vacation. Rena immediately snaps back, telling him to keep his nose out of her business. He laughs in sweet relief. She definitely didn't notice his box. Or so he thought. Her very next words utterly shatter his calm facade. Something feels off, Rena mutters, glaring with intense suspicion. Hiding his panic, he asks what is wrong. This coincidence is too weird. She directly accuses him of being a stalker, her eyes narrowing sharply. With a quiet sigh, he explains that the Imperial Secretariat booked everything. He grins, suggesting she might actually be the stalker here. That witty comeback triggers an immediate, loud shout of outrage from her. Hurriedly, he decides it's time to move the box somewhere more secure. If he knew she'd be here, he never would have taken it out. Then she casually remarks that the box seems extremely important to him. Her sharp gaze locks onto him, instantly shattering his calm, cool exterior. She notes that he has been anxiously fiddling with it for a while. The terrifying truth hits him. She has been watching him the entire time. The whole time, Julian laughs it off, claiming it is just a simple jewelry box. The noble woman looks completely unconvinced. Rena asks in a mocking tone if he is still totally obsessed with shiny jewels. She heard he forged a sword out of gems, but he claims you can never have enough. He laughs. Suddenly, a sharp jolt from the train shakes the entire passenger cabin. The box flies right out of his hands. Julian is furious, wondering why they suddenly stopped. An announcement blares, warning passengers that the journey is temporarily on hold. A sudden storm blocked the tracks. Just then, the hidden artifact tumbles right out of the box. It rolls straight to Rena's feet. Julian just stares, his entire cover story instantly blown. All his secrecy was for nothing. Rena cautiously examines the mysterious stone. She remarks that the jewel looks pretty dented and clearly is not well cared for. So much for his love of gems. With a shrug, she hands the item right back. Julian stares at her, completely baffled that she did not recognize this massive spiritual jewel. Keeping his cool, he thanks her and pockets it, though his hands are shaking. They make casual small talk about the long trip, but his heart is still pounding. The noble lady coldly mentions she did not exactly enjoy having him around. Julian just smiles, thanking her anyway for keeping him company during the incredibly boring ride. Soon, an attendant arrives to escort her back to her private luxury carriage. Before he can slip away, Rena calls out to him. "What is it?" Julian asks. He hides his nerves. Looking embarrassed, the young woman speaks up. She thanks him for saving her back in the village. "This is not personal," she insists. She is thanking him as a fellow swordswoman. Julian just laughs, telling her to forget it. They are both student swordsmen, after all. Rena coldly reminds him that he was expelled. He tells her not to be so cold to an old classmate as he turns. Rena tells her attendant they are ready to depart. The train ride is finally over. Odwin asks if he enjoyed Bernardin. He laughs, admitting it was not a fun mission. He looks at her desk, asking what is up with the massive stack of paperwork. It is a literal mountain of documents. He jokes that she must be the busy one. He asks if she was having all the fun while he was away on duty. Odwin glares, furiously asking him whose fault he thinks all this extra paperwork is. Julian asks if she is just being lazy, making her scream that it is entirely his fault. She demands to know why on earth he burned down a pier and an entire forest. He casually jokes that desperate times call for absolutely desperate measures. The captain sighs wearily, muttering that she should have known better than to ask. She explains that most of these complaints are actually from the Church of the Sun. That forest was sacred to them, though luckily the imperial court is stepping in to help. Still, she reminds Julian that she is the one stuck cleaning up his massive mess. Julian just smiles, teasing that is exactly why he did it. She sighs, pulling over the paperwork and hands him some letters, noting that several are from the academy. Suddenly, she stops and stares at a letter with an unusual seal. It is from the Jural monastery, she mutters in complete confusion. Julian grinds his teeth, unable to believe Aurora would handle his mission this way. Odwin points out it makes perfect sense for them to despise him. Still, sending a direct letter like this is an incredibly extreme measure. "What do you know about this?" she asks him, her gaze turning deadly serious. He calls him in disbelief, shocked that the Aurora Society could make such a massive mistake. A soldier throws the door open, shouting Julian's name to get his attention. He reports that the secretary's office wants to know what happened in Bernardin. Terrified, the soldier quickly backs away and apologizes for interrupting. "Get out of here and take these with you, Julian," Odwin says. He hands over the letters. "See you later, Captain," Julian says. He leaves with a smile. Outside, an excited boy asks if he really killed the demon all on his own, but after that Dawn's society letter. A demon is the least of his worries. He dismisses the kid to read. Alone, wondering what it says. Now, let's see what secrets are inside. The young man is shocked. It is just a perfectly normal letter. But as he stares closely at the message, an ink snake suddenly leaps. From the paper, the Archbishop wishes to see Bishop Julian, the creature speaks. Julian recognizes Alelenor's unique magic, spelled the very moment he sees it. It must be to deliver the demon's horn, Julian thinks, dispersing the creature. Still, only the captain and the Imperial Cabinet knew when he would return. This means he needs to be extremely careful about who he actually trusts. Entering the cathedral, Julian notices everyone casting nervous stares at him. He absolutely hates drawing all this unwanted attention from the crowd. A nun approaches him, saying, "Welcome back, Julian. It has been a while." "It has indeed been a while, Eleanor," he replies back with a calm smile. "Rumors are already spreading everywhere about what you did in Bernardin." The mage says this as her physical appearance begins to shift and transform. Apparently, he defeated a 3-horned demon alone and burned down an entire forest. She mentions she would love to hear that epic story straight from him. "I'm flattered, Bishop," but Julian says, reaching deep into his clothes. "Could you please not send these letters directly? It puts me in danger." He warns her, flashing the letter with a sharp, threatening look in his eyes. Eleanor claims only he can see the magic, but Julian wants zero risks. She then asks how he expects them to communicate in the future. Julian calmly suggests he can simply drop by and speak to her face to face. "Visit me?" she asks, totally taken aback by his unexpected response. She jokes that he wouldn't even know how to find her. Surely he is bluffing. There is no way he knows her true identity. Leaving her stunned, Julian walks past her and enters the main church hall. "Bishop Julian, you are finally here," the excited Archbishop shouts warmly. The leader of the Aurora Society immediately asks to see the demon's horn. Julian grins mischievously, laughing as he reveals he did not bring it. "So it wasn't a 3-horned demon?" the masked leader asks in disbelief. Julian confirms that it was, and the powerful spirit stone was indeed there. "Then where is the stone?" the chief demands, growing highly impatient. The surrounding members exchange confused looks as Julian calmly delivers his answer. "He took it to the Imperial Secretary's office." "Repeat that," Tenorin demands. "Yes, Archbishop, I took the 3-horned demon's artifact straight to the office," Julian says with a smirk as an overwhelming power begins to emanate. The leader clenches his hands, angrily demanding that the warrior explain himself. Julian laughs and says he was only taking 1 step back to take 3 steps forward. He laughs unbothered by the threat. The other members shout in anger. protesting Julian's transgression, but Julian just looks at everyone, calling them foolish. If he wanted to betray them, he asks, why would he even bother coming back? He calmly explains that his only goal was to gather some crucial information. It is the first stone from a three-horned demon the nobles have collected. Once those high nobles discover its dark power, they will stop at nothing to get more. Hearing this, Archbishop Tenelrin calms down, admitting it is not a bad idea. But he still asks if that is really reason enough to hand over his artifact. Tenelrin asks with fiery eyes, while members behind Julian prepare to strike. Julian just laughs, playing it off by saying there is obviously another reason. He points out that massive, wild rumors are already spreading like wildfire across the entire land. Specifically about the warrior who defeated the three-horned demon entirely on his own. They call him the Pillar of the Blind Eye, the successor to the Holy Sword. Everyone is watching him now, including some powerful people the Archbishop knows well. Julian smiles, asking if Tenelrin is curious about who will come after him. The angry members shout, calling it a lie, but Julian asks if they really want to fight. He draws his sword with a smirk, whispering how interesting this is. Julian's sword glows with mana, but the Archbishop suddenly shouts for them to stop. Demanding to know who Julian is talking about, Tenelrin watches as a member attacks. Julian swiftly parries the sudden strike, focusing his raw power in a split second. He counters instantly. The attacker coughs in pain while Julian stands over him, completely unharmed. Turning back to the leader, the young man says he will gladly reveal the truth. His master, the legendary wielder of the Holy Sword, is coming for his pupil. Hearing the name Heidenreich, the Archbishop erupts with a wave of furious power. Julian notices his mention of the Holy Sword completely rattles the leader. And just like that, dangerous mana floods the entire room as Tenelrin screams in rage. He yells that Hayden destroyed his face and now suspects him as well. Returning empty-handed looks suspicious. Now everything makes sense, the organization's leader exclaims, jumping to his feet. He realizes that Hayden even suspects his own talented pupil. Their shared hatred for Heidenreich officially seals a new, secret alliance. The Archbishop admits he finally understands why Julian joined their group. I'm glad you understand, Julian replies, letting out a relieved sigh. Sitting at his desk, Julian knows he only bought himself a little time. If he can play the Dawn Society against the Imperial Court, he might just survive. But to survive this dangerous game, he must first deal with an urgent problem. Someone has been quietly tailing him from the shadows, and it needs to stop. At first, the stalker didn't seem dangerous, but Julian is growing more worried by the day. Still, he sighs with relief, already knowing the true identity of his shadow. Suddenly, a servant enters the room, holding an official letter from the cabinet. Julian calmly tells the boy to just leave the letter on the table. The boy carefully sets the heavy document down and turns to leave. But right before the boy can step out, Julian suddenly calls out to him. Julian notes that Lazarus seems quite busy lately, and the boy nervously blames the blind eyes. Even as a simple trainee, he apparently has an absolutely massive amount of daily work to do. It is too much responsibility for a recruit. After all, this is the same youth who brought a highly confidential message straight to the captain's office right after his mission. Lazarus nervously agrees, claiming he was just incredibly curious about the power of the Spirit Stone. Hearing this, Julian simply smiles, though his friendly expression hides a much deeper, darker suspicion. He points out how fascinating it is that a mere recruit even knows about the stone. The boy tries to play dumb, but the trap is already set. See, Julian had never once mentioned the word Spirit Stone to him before this exact moment. Yet the boy wasn't surprised. Only a few elite groups knew about the stone. The elite Imperial Court and, of course, the secret Dawn Society. Julian is closing in. Lazarus completely loses his cool. He is totally caught. Julian explains that from the very beginning, he knew something was incredibly strange about him. This young trainee was always taking on highly sensitive tasks far above his actual rank. His tone grows menacing as he grips the boy's shoulder tightly. You couldn't do this without the Dawn Society hiding inside the imperial court. Julian asks with a sharp smile before stepping back and changing his entire tone. He casually tells him to relax, assuring the terrified boy that he has no plans to hurt him. He just wants to talk. Realizing his cover is blown, the boy stammers in shock. Does this mean I can finally stop hiding? Lazarus slowly unclasps his heavy purple necklace. Check this out, the purple crystal suddenly erupts with incredibly thick, pure magical energy. The boy's weak posture instantly vanishes, replaced by a cold, deadly sharp and piercing glare. Julian asks if that was a mental disguise. He looks entirely different now. The spy explains that without the artifact, keeping his disguise would be impossible. Since Julian doesn't actually want to fight him, Lazarus demands to know his true goal. Julian adopts a relaxed posture and claims his request is actually pretty simple. He laughs, asking if the young man wants to start working for him instead of them. The highly suspicious agent asks what he's getting at, so Julian explains he wants a spy. Terrified by the heavy implications, the young man asks if he wants a double agent. Lazarus stares in absolute disbelief, shocked that Julian expects him to betray his own sacred society. Julian chuckles, telling him to stop being dramatic. He just wants control. The boy snaps back, demanding to know if Julian truly believes he can be bought so easily. But of course, our protagonist is not expecting him to do this for free. Changing his tone to something incredibly menacing, Julian casually mentions the spy's regular charity donations. The young man instantly freezes as Julian recites the exact amount he gives away. "This place is important to you, isn't it?" Julian asks with a cold smile. He laughs. It would be so sad if something happened to it. Lazarus glares with pure contempt. The warrior just laughs it off. He says he is only kidding, no need to take him seriously. But if the agent helps, Julian will fund the home with generous cash. A generous amount, the boy hesitates, clearly tempted by the offer. Julian laughs, declaring he suddenly has a massive urge to do some good deeds. The confused agent just stares in complete silence, trying to process everything. Days pass after that tense talk. A member of Aurora approaches him. He asks if he brought the requested items. Lazarus confirms it to Bishop Aiden. He replies, handing over a letter. The official immediately examines it. It reveals Hayden Reich's destination. The boy also mentions a petition. But the noble quickly cuts him off, calling the petition unimportant. Instead, the young man must report this discovery to the Archbishop immediately. The boy bows and confirms, but the official halts him, noting his pale look. The bishop asks the nervous soldier what happened, noticing he seems off. Lazarus hesitates. He struggles to find the right words to say. Can Aurora protect him and Sister Turnia? The agent wonders. Julian promised to help the orphanage, leaving him deeply torn. Silent and tense, suddenly the noble snaps him from his thoughts. The startled boy claims nothing is wrong. Suddenly, elegant footsteps echo. Julian is welcomed home. His staff immediately attends to him. They take his coat, yet the warrior is completely lost. He was too reckless with Lazarus, Sihan thinks with dread. If the boy had been sharper, he would have seen. Sihan never planned this. Playing Julian is clouding his mind. Just then, an assistant informs him of a message from home. Intrigued, the warrior asks for details about the family update. His sister, Runa Kryart, is getting married and wants him there. Without hesitation, the swordsman declines. He claims he is too busy. The assistant nods. She prepares to send his final reply. But suddenly, the warrior calls out. He has changed his mind. He will attend. His assistant offers to prepare his wedding attire. She mentions preparing his usual choice, that loud, pink glittery suit. Sihan shudders. He suggests looking for something a bit more elegant. The protagonist decides to visit a high-end clothing store alone. The staff there immediately freeze, terrified by his terrifying presence. They fear the famous swordsman, but he is simply overwhelmed. Staring at the massive clothing selection, he considers asking for help. Unfortunately, neither Sihan nor Julian possesses any real sense of style. He awkwardly asks for assistance. His voice sounds incredibly menacing. The workers instantly panic, apologizing profusely to the scary customer. Finding himself completely alone, he sighs. Meanwhile, Eileen enters the shop. An assistant greets the young mage, who is also browsing dresses. Eileen is exhausted. She complains about her grueling academy workload. Some idiot bought all the regional moonstone, nearly costing her job. Fortunately, the court assigned her to study the new spirit stones. She is thrilled. This means writing an incredibly detailed thesis. The employee asks what she needs. The mage has an answer. She explains she is attending a high-profile, noble wedding soon. Specifically, the grand wedding of the elegant Runa Kryart. The assistant leads her to the dresses. Eileen finally breathes easily. Escaping her duties feels amazing. She wanders through the rich fabrics. Suddenly, she stops dead in her tracks. She is completely shocked. Right there in the very same room stands Julian himself. She hides from him. The warrior comments that he could have sworn he saw something as he turns back to look at the suits. She wonders why she even hid. The noblewoman thinks, still in shock. Surprised, the genius mage realizes that even though Julian is not from the main family branch, her former colleague is. Still part of it, Eileen wonders why he is looking for decent clothes. Julian always dresses like a sausage. Disgusted, the girl stares at the villain's terrible fashion sense. Julian continues, certain he has found the perfect attire. Eileen can only think about how he will ruin the ceremony with such an ugly outfit. A child runs past behind her, shouting for his mother to look at the crazy lady. Eileen gathers her courage and goes to speak with him. The mage asks if he really intends to wear that. It is funny seeing her here, Julian says, since she is always studying. She replies that she actually thinks he has no idea what clothes are for, since he only ever wears the absolute tackiest, most ridiculous outfits. Julian asks what she means by that, and the young woman retorts, asking if he is playing dumb. She asks if he holds a grudge against the Kryart family and if he is trying to show everyone that he intends to eradicate the nobles. The young man is completely lost by her bizarre comments, having absolutely no idea what kind of meaning she sees in his outfit. Eileen points to the symbol on his shirt, turning it to show him the mark. She explains it is the exact design their warrior family uses when punishing their enemies. Laughing, Eileen says that although the symbol now only has an aesthetic meaning, it is still hilarious to see a deserter like him wearing it. Since Sehu had never played as Julian, he had no idea about this. Tired of clothes shopping and knowing Julian only likes extravagant things, he makes a defeated gesture, but wait, his backup plan is even worse. As he pulls out a shimmering outfit, Eileen stares in pure disbelief. She asks without hesitation if he seriously wants to wear that piece of junk. The young woman steps forward, stating she absolutely cannot allow such a disaster. In the name of the artistic Donation family, she promises to help him. He gladly follows her, relieved to have some help with his outfit chosen. The wedding day finally arrives. The doorman takes his invitation, terrified. He trembles, nervously confirming his attendance. Meanwhile, the warrior elegantly walks toward the ceremony, but inside, Sehu feels deeply uncomfortable. Julian is absolutely not happy to be there at all. He did not want to come, but he has a very good reason. The Kryart family is famous for possessing incredibly powerful spirit stones. Getting one of these stones is crucial, and his father keeps them hidden. Just thinking about that man makes the young noble feel physically sick. Stepping into the grand palace, the musicians suddenly stop playing and everyone freezes. Everyone trembles upon seeing him. the music stopping just for him feels insane. He smiles uncomfortably as everyone stares in pure shock. They cannot believe he showed up. A girl in white runs over to embrace him. Renea hugs him tightly, thrilled that her brother actually came to the wedding. She waves her hand cheerfully, saying how much she has missed him. It is rare to see anyone treat Julian with such warm affection. Renea eagerly greets Eileen. She is beaming with sheer joy. She is surprised they know each other since they are in different years. Julian freezes. He completely forgot they are in different academy grades. With a bright sparkle in her eyes, she says she is happy he dressed up. He usually looks like an absolute clown, so this is a pleasant surprise. Eileen glares icily at him. She expects some credit for his sharp outfit. Julian quickly defends himself, saying a special occasion calls for a fine suit. He chose a sharp look, but the bride notices Eileen frowning deeply. Seeing her disappointed expression, Renea warmly thanks them both for coming. She smiles brightly. Suddenly, a harsh voice calls out from across the hall. Joshua Kryart storms over in a massive hurry, looking incredibly angry. Renea happily turns to greet her other brother, but he grabs her hand. He shouts instantly, demanding to know what she thinks she is doing. He loudly scolds her for giving attention to mere branch family members. Renea quickly pulls her hand away, insisting she was just happy to see them. She tells him to greet Julian too, which only makes Joshua furious. He yells back, "Who said that trash is my brother?" It is pure rage. Now watch, the ugly tension Julian expected finally settles over the hall. Joshua sneers, demanding to know why a worthless branch member is here. Julian just chuckles, saying he merely accepted an invitation. Joshua aggressively snatches it. He rips the invitation paper to pieces without a single second thought. Shock sweeps the hall. Everyone freezes, staring at the aggressive display. Joshua glares with pure malice, delivering a dark warning to the warrior. He orders him to get out, but Julian mockingly asks what if he refuses. Enraged, Joshua draws his weapon, promising to show everyone what happens next. The blade is fully unsheathed. He is ready to unleash his fury. Joshua sneers, determined to crush any branch member who dares defy him. This is Joshua Kryart, a prominent member of the main family line. He is the chief troublemaker, causing endless chaos back at V Academy. He bullies new students and constantly disrupts classes taught by lower-class teachers. Absolutely nobody has the guts to stand up to his arrogant behavior. His loud voice booms, telling the imperial dog to face him right now. Julian smiles. Is this raw courage, or is it just pure stupidity? Challenging one of the greatest swordsmen in the kingdom is a fatal mistake. Julian moves like lightning. He lunges forward with incredible, overwhelming speed. Instantly, he grabs Joshua by the arm. The impact is absolutely brutal. Julian squeezes his wrist hard, furious that he dared to lay hands on Renea. That is something a branch family member would absolutely never do. Joshua's sword clatters loudly onto the stone floor, shattering the heavy silence. Julian steps closer, telling him he should feel deep shame. Suddenly, Heron yells. Heron demands they stop, but Julian refuses to let Renea be treated so horribly. Heron gestures toward all the watching guests, pleading with him to stop. This is no place for a scene. Joshua quickly pulls himself free. He loudly shouts that Heron is right, pretending to be the victim. Heron, however, tells Joshua to stop making a scene and embarrassing the family. After all, he started this. Instantly, the humiliated young man freezes in place. Heron, deeply annoyed by the spectacle, continues his harsh public scolding. He reminds everyone that he represents their father, making Joshua's outburst completely unacceptable. Hearing this, Seho quietly reflects on the situation. If their father isn't here, it means securing the legendary Spirit Stone will be next to impossible. A wave of disappointment washes over him for coming all this way. Julian offers his apologies for the chaos while asking if Renea is all right. With a proud smile, she insists everything is fine since he protected her. Renea tries to ease the tension, but Julian suggests they should leave. Confused, she wonders why, but her brother replies that they have overstayed. Even he knows when to exit. Julian stops, turning to thank Lady Eileen. With a polite smile, he praises the perfect outfit she picked for him. He bows, stating her impeccable taste makes her truly worthy of the Adon family. Then a sudden memory flashes through her mind, and it changes everything. He once told her it felt as if stars were woven into the fabric. Calling it a wonderful enchantment, he said it suited the Adon name perfectly. Her emotions surge wildly as the professor recalls their deeply shared connection. Seizing the moment, Julian quickly makes his quiet exit from the palace. But before he can get far, Renea's voice calls out as she chases him. Completely out of breath, she gasps that he walks way too fast for her. Panting heavily, she pulls out an item and asks him to tell the truth. She questions if the only reason he attended this wedding was to see their father. With a gentle hand, she offers a small jewelry box as a special keepsake. This precious memento belonged to their mother, a token he once fought bitterly for. Julian silently wonders if his presence kept their father from coming today. Nearby, Siu is shocked to hear that Julian's mother has already passed away. Renea reveals she stole the treasure in secret just to hand it to him. Leaving such a beautiful artifact to rot in some dusty storeroom felt like a tragedy. Holding his breath, the young man opens the box to find something brilliant. A refined spirit stone rests inside, completely purged of any dark demonic energy. Yet Seho cannot help but wonder how little he knows of this body. Despite his confusion, Julian looks at his sister with deep, genuine gratitude. Renea beams, confident that returning the heirloom to him was the right call. She laughs, mentioning it is the first time she has seen him smile. A rare moment of genuine warmth passes between the two long-estranged siblings. Renea waves goodbye, pleading with him to visit home again very soon. After promising he will, Julian turns and strides out of the palace gates. Inside, Seho is stunned to realize this vital stone was actually a maternal inheritance. A sudden heavy emotion grips the hero, forcing him to swallow hard. A single tear slips down his cheek as Julian's residual feelings break through. Even a cold warrior has a heart. Meanwhile, a carriage speeds through forests. Seho remains amazed that someone as detached as Julian possessed such deep humanity. He quietly contemplates whether some lingering warmth still resides within this vessel. A soft chuckle escapes his lips as he realizes he achieved his goal anyway. He actually got what he came for. Who would have guessed Siu would score a spirit stone? Siu was still wondering what to do with such a powerful object. Giving it to Aurora or the Imperials just felt like a terrible mistake. Then, the young man remembered a forgotten ability, a unique trait his character possessed that remained completely untouched, the Demon King Vessel, a skill allowing him to absorb relics, packed with ancient dark energy to boost his own strength. Basically, our warrior could literally eat spirit stones for power. He laughed at the insane idea of actually turning into the Demon King himself, but playing the part of Julian was a total headache, a role he absolutely detested playing. Yet the grind carried him quietly through the dense woods. Soon, a fancy chest clicked shut. Still, our boy was pretty terrified of holding onto such a dangerous artifact. He knew learning a sealing spell to conceal its presence was his best bet. After surviving non-stop warfare, the tired warrior could finally catch his breath. Silent mansion, quiet as always. Suddenly, a cold chill ran down his spine, sending him leaping off the sofa in pure reflex. The atmospheric energy around him had shifted violently. The swordsman strained his senses, trying desperately to locate the massive disturbance. He had to be careful. Any slip could expose his own energy to the intruder. Thankfully, there was no murderous intent. Still cautious, our warrior crept forward, following the trail of foreign power. Opening a quiet room, he spotted a stunning girl with blue hair and purple eyes. She was calmly sipping tea. Well, Julian, she said, setting down her cup. Eleanor giggled, teasing him for taking so sweet time. She claimed she grew tired of waiting around, so she just made herself at home. A guest deserves proper treatment. Right? The smiling mage asked. Talk about an uninvited guest showing up. Seal was pretty sure she had used her mind charms to bypass the mansion staff. Bishop Eleanor, to what do I owe the pleasure of this visit? He sat down, trying to keep his composure. She replied that it was just a friendly chat between colleagues. He struggled to hide his annoyance at her casual disrespect, but she quickly shifted focus, stating there was a serious matter to settle. Setting her cup down, she brought up his recent mission in the village where he successfully slew a rogue demon. He nodded. Was it a humanoid demon? She asked him. Right then, the swordsman realized she was probing his knowledge on human transformation. Exactly, Eleanor, he replied, gesturing. Suddenly, a guy transformed, but Julian noted those horned monsters differed greatly from actual, purebred demons he had faced. Surprised, she leaned in and asked him to repeat that. He clarified that the creature seemed like a cheap, poorly crafted copy of a real demon. She asked how much he really knew, but our boy played dumb, admitting he was completely in the dark. She gave a slight nod, ending the interrogation. Sarcastically, he asked if she got her answers. Surprisingly, she agreed, saying his little test was officially over and she had learned what she needed. It seemed he understood plenty about the secret operations of the Aurora Society. The bishop remarked, turning her back to him, so you know your place. There is no reason for us to fight. With those parting words, she vanished. Back at the palace, Julian collapsed onto the floor in relief, knowing he had to either fully commit to Aurora or walk away for good. The warrior knew his own home was no longer safe and decided to do something about the situation soon. Are you sure you want to leave this with me? Harren asked. Visibly confused, his brother added that he expected Julian to punish Joshua for his actions. However, our protagonist just laughed, saying he did not care about any of that. Curious, the young noble asked what was inside the container. He gasped in complete terror upon hearing about his mother's inheritance. Are you insane? Harren shouted, leaving Lady Melina's memento with me, but Julian knew his brother would never abuse the stone. The nobleman was the perfect person to entrust it to for safekeeping. Harren clutched the box, completely in shock at the heavy responsibility he had just received. Honestly, this is a massive burden to carry, the protagonist said. His brother stood frozen, wondering how Julian could trust him with such a precious artifact. Their mother meant everything to them both. Harren was sure this meant the warrior was committing himself deeply to the Empire's cause. Julian just stared back at him, utterly confused by his brother's strange rambling. Even after several days, Joshua's arm was still badly injured. His own brother had nearly broken it at the wedding. A maid approached quietly to change his bandages, but Joshua immediately snapped at her to hurry up. Furious, the noble was in disbelief at the audacity of a mere bastard son, yet Julian still inherited the striking gray hair of the noble Kryart family, and Joshua hated his brother's arrogant attitude. During their clash, he could not even react to that terrifying speed. Without even striking back, he knew he had lost before the fight started. Began, a stray drop of water splashed on Joshua's face. The maid tried to apologize, stuttering and shaking in terror. Frozen, she did not even wipe it away. Bowing flat on the floor, she begged for mercy. Joshua stood up, raising his hand to strike her, but paused upon hearing a familiar voice. I came when you called, announced Alphas, his loyal personal guard and vice captain of the Blue Lion Order. Joshua dismissed the trembling maid. Before he lost his temper completely, he thrust his bandaged arm toward the soldier, screaming at him for allowing such blatant disrespect to a main family member. Alphas tried to explain he was only following the patriarch's strict orders, but Joshua cut him off, roaring that his only job was to protect the main Kryart bloodline. Realizing his position, alphas could only offer a quiet apology. The angry noble sneered that an incompetent warrior like him would never find another job. Joshua turned on him, claiming that even if the guard had been there, he would have stood by uselessly anyway. Bending down, Joshua soaked the towel from his arm and threw it straight at the guard's face, panting. The spoiled noble barked at him to shut up, because apologies from a worm mean nothing. But instead of breaking, alphas remained calm and addressed his furious master. The guard asked if he wanted revenge on Julian. Desperate, Joshua demanded to know how. And alphas replied there was a perfect way, provided he did not question the methods they used. The soldier explained that even the absolute strongest fighters could not withstand directly with the massive mana pool his brother possessed. Julian's ability to infuse his blade with mana was a dream for any soldier. The boy snapped. To get straight to the point, stripped of that massive advantage, he becomes incredibly weak, the soldier explained. Quietly, he drew a strange artifact from his armor. He revealed a shattered spirit stone, explaining that it failed to suppress the overwhelming demonic influence inside it. Soon, the magical device was handed over. Joshua instantly stumbled from the immense pressure the jewel exerted. Alphas explained this device froze the flow of human mana. Of mana inside humans. Angrily, the boy retorted that in that case he wouldn't be able to use his own power to fight back either. The soldier slowly walked up, laughing and mocking him, saying he would not even need mana if he used this. Reaching out, he offered a sinister demon horn to the young noble. Meanwhile, back at his palace, Julian was peacefully tending to his orchids, spending time doing what he loved. Cleared his mind, but his peace was instantly shattered. Lazarus burst inside, shouting that members of the Aurora faction were planning an ambush. The noble laughed in sheer exasperation at having his rare moment of peace ruined, and in his surprise, he snapped one of his most prized plants. Forcing down his anger, he calmly asked the young man to speak normally so they could actually discuss the threat. Julian just laughed, dismissing any threat. An ambush, no danger. It was not the bishop's planning the trap. His spy urged caution, but the young lord found it much more entertaining to wait and see what his enemies would do next. Lazarus, completely bewildered, just stared at him, utterly lost. Meanwhile, Julian did his absolute best to stay composed and resist the urge to throw his spy out the window. He slowly turned around and asked if the agent liked plants. Lazarus just stared back in confusion as his master began a strange speech about orchids. Our host pulled one plant from the pot, laughing as he pointed out a rotting root. Luckily, the decay is quite minor, the swordsman noted calmly. The confused agent had no idea what point he was trying to make. Taking the chance, the spy reminded the noble of his upcoming job as a special academy instructor, and about a grand party hosted by the cabinet. Knowing that Hayden would attend that event made Julian's eyes gleam with sudden interest. Surprisingly, our clever lord requested a very simple arrangement, agreeing to visit the academy only to carry out his basic teaching tasks. Right then, Lazarus felt totally shocked by the noble's sudden choice. Will Julian exploit the clueless guards of the grand cabinet party to mislead the Aurora? The spy wondered, deeply worried. Since he would be at the training grounds, knowing about the upcoming trap, this chance to wipe out the Aurora, the agent felt deeply anxious. Dangerous plan. Without even intending to, Julian had acted like a brilliant, cold mastermind. Feeling thoroughly unsettled, the nervous elder smiled while sweating from pure anxiety. Julian's smile, on the other hand, was sharp, confident, and perfectly serene. Wiping his brow, the anxious elder admitted he never expected the famed swordsman to show up himself, since the massive victory anniversary was rapidly approaching. Everyone assumed the young master would be too busy. A strange aura flared up around the nervous elder as he stumbled over his words before speaking. Surely the students are excited about Julian's special upcoming lecture. A worried staff member asks if the young man actually knows what massive lecture lies ahead. Julian just closes his eyes, focusing his mind and gathering his thoughts. He quietly replies that he is fully aware and actually quite looking forward to it. Deep down, Sihu is secretly thrilled. He never expected to stand at the podium. Shortly after, inside the grand first auditorium of V Academy, a light-haired girl whispers softly. She lets Rena know that the special guest speaker hasn't even shown up yet. Rena sighs with relief, glad she managed to avoid being late. Her bones ache from training way too hard, and she plans on catching a quick nap. Her classmate instantly notices how completely exhausted the girl looks. Rena shrugs, glad she only has to sit back and listen to some boring talk. Normally, these visiting speakers are prestigious members of the legendary Shut Eyes group. The girls whisper, guessing that today's speaker is probably nothing more than some ordinary commoner. Soon, the grand announcement rings out at the front. Our special guest has finally arrived. The second the students see his face, their jaws hit the floor. Rena's friend practically screams out, pointing in absolute disbelief. Blinking away her sleepiness, Rena rubs her heavy eyes and stares directly at the stage. The handsome young man currently positioning himself at the front of the room is very familiar. Yes, it is actually Julian, introducing himself with perfect poise. He smiles, telling them it is an absolute pleasure to teach them today. Talk about a complete shock, she stares at him like she just saw a literal ghost. Sensing the absolute panic in the air, the young examiner chuckles softly. Julian gently tells the room to calm down. There is no need to be terrified. He is just here to briefly prepare them for the upcoming practical test. And honestly, what he is about to share is nothing too crazy. This only leaves the students even more confused as he prepares to kick things off. He asks them a simple question: why exactly do they practice swordsmanship? Total silence. The icebreaker failed completely, and absolutely nobody in the entire room wants to speak. So Julian decides to put Rena right on the spot instead. She is completely thrown off by this, nearly snapping at him with her usual cold attitude. But she catches herself. Today, he is the guest instructor. Even though she absolutely despises the guy, she knows she has to show some basic respect. In a slick move, the clever girl quickly flips the question back on him. She demands to know his own reason for holding a sword. Julian immediately answers her with total blunt honesty. His goal is fame and status. Rena is shocked, expecting some cliché lie about serving the imperial family. With the spotlight suddenly thrown right back on her, Rena claims her goal is simply to elevate her mind and body. But deep down, her actual driving force is a pure, burning desire for revenge. Julian nods in approval at her deep answer, smiling at the class. He explains that his strange question was actually meant to teach them a crucial lesson. Anything he could teach them about swordplay in 1 hour is basically worthless. They have already learned their own styles from their own lives. A single quick lecture is obviously never going to help them improve in any real way. So instead of talking about physical steel, they are focusing on something else. Aura's Rena keeps a completely stone-cold face, but her mind is racing. Reina realizes that taking these classes from Julian is going to be incredible. Every single human possesses aura veins, using them to enchant their own body. They can even enchant their weapon, which clearly indicates their fighting prowess. Smiling, the guest lecturer asks if anyone can see his current aura. At this exact moment, everything finally clicks for Reina. She finally understands the sheer difference in power between opponents. The other students quickly chime in, claiming his aura color is gray. But out of nowhere, a confident female voice shouts that it is silver. She repeats the color with total conviction, adding an extra detail. Julian is actually using a second color right now, a light cobalt. The silver coats his sword sheath, while the cobalt concentrates in his hand. How clearly you perceive someone's aura reveals your own skill level. Riina had worked incredibly hard just to close this massive power gap. And yet, Julian is about to deliver a shocking blow to her confidence. Building up the tension, Julian reveals there is actually one more hidden color. This completely stuns Riina, especially when he notes that absolutely nobody spotted it. If an opponent cannot even sense your full power, the gap is massive. In a real fight, a difference that huge makes defeating them incredibly easy. Biting her nail in frustration, Riina is forced to face reality. She realizes she has been way too arrogant and still has far to go. The moment the lecture wraps up, Julian is showered with high praise. The students absolutely loved it, even though he was just a guest speaker. The headmaster approaches nervously, admitting he was quite anxious at first. Julian just grins, admitting nobody would expect him to be teaching classes. Since everything went perfectly, the headmaster drops some brand new plans. Julian is now officially in charge of the academy's practical exams. Once the headmaster departs, Julian decides it is time to head home. Walking through the corridors, he realizes he actually recognizes this exact hallway from the game. Forgotten memories of the game's lore begin flashing violently through his mind. Forgotten titles like Black Knight and names like Hayden Rich rush back. Straining to understand, he tries to recall what Black Knight even meant. Then he remembers the game trailer showing the Holy Swordsman being assassinated. He vows to himself that this tragic fate will never happen under his watch. Meanwhile, back at Julian's estate, an impatient hand taps against a sofa. It is Joshua waiting for him, taking in the bizarre mansion around him. He looks at the artwork, spotting some extremely weird and confusing sculptures. Joshua completely gives up trying to understand his rival's weird taste in art. He also cannot fathom why there are so many plants crowding the room. Suddenly, a servant approaches, reporting that the barrier is fully set up. This specialized barrier is fully capable of blocking the flow of magical mana. It will instantly activate the moment Joshua gives the secret signal. Seeing the boy trembling in fear, Joshua asks why he's so afraid of Julian. To him, this terror makes absolutely no sense given what he has prepared. He brought 2 demon-hunting knights and 6 elite soldiers from the Kryart family. Along with a high-ranking mage, this is easily enough to crush a single target. The kid warns that they are dealing with Julian, who is definitely no ordinary target. He worries their current prep is not enough, prompting a skeptical Joshua to ask why. The boy admits he has been sensing some seriously strange vibes inside this mansion. On top of that, it is late, yet they have not run into a single soul. Apparently, Julian already knows they are coming and has laid a trap. Joshua stands up and punches the terrified kid right in the face. With pure rage, he calls the kid an absolute fool. Joshua angrily demands if he even deserves the proud title of a Kryart family knight. Shaking with fear, the young knight stammers out a quick apology. Joshua snaps that he does not need to fight Julian, just activate the barrier. He sneers in disgust, stating that once the barrier is active, Julian is finished. The target will be completely blocked from using his powerful aura. Smiling wickedly, Joshua boasts that the horn power makes Julian no match for him. Right then, 2 soldiers rush in to report that someone has just arrived outside. Joshua immediately orders his men to take their combat positions. Meanwhile, outside the mansion, figures emerge from the shadows of the bushes. Hooded men wait in ambush, whispering that Julian must be fast asleep by now. William Highlands, a member of the Dawn Society, cannot wait to kill Julian. The other cultists grumble that William barely joined and is already acting like a big shot. He was fast-tracked to bishop while completely ignoring the society's ancient rules. Still, every member here shares a deep, bitter hatred for Julian. They are absolutely certain that tonight will be his final night on Earth. For William, this is personal. He wants vengeance for the Highlands family. Another member notices William is shaking, asking if he is getting cold feet. Calming his nerves, William admits he got a bit carried away there. Drawing his wand, he commands everyone to prepare to storm the mansion. Right in front of his allies, he begins chanting a powerful spell. A massive barrier flares up, masking their presence so Julian cannot sense them. Fortunately for them, all of Julian's staff left before sunset. The place should be empty, but watch how quickly things turn as they creep inside. William lights the path with his wand, but things quickly start to feel off. A nervous ally asks what is wrong as the air turns heavy. The local mana flow is totally distorted, as if someone hijacked the entire environment. Meanwhile, one of Joshua's scouts warns that Julian did not arrive alone. A massive group is breaching the mansion, and they are highly skilled mages. This sudden news makes Joshua realize something is terribly wrong. Did Julian somehow see right through their entire master plan? On the other side, William realizes his own magic is completely blocked by a mana barrier. And just like that, both foolish groups reach the exact same grim conclusion. They walked right into a deadly trap set by Julian himself. A terrified knight panics, but Joshua is too proud to back down now. Smirking confidently, Joshua refuses to let a little trap ruin his day. He declares that trap or no trap, Julian dies right here tonight. After all, the active barrier will still keep their target severely weakened. The only difference now is his knights must deal with those pesky extra guests. Julian's companions are likely waiting just outside the corridor. The knights grip their weapons. Joshua positions himself right at the front, ready. He wants a fight. With a violent jolt, the boy throws the door wide open. The intruders stand revealed, even though he can tell these guys are strong. He shouts without hesitation, calling them absolute fools for working for that scum. But William snaps back, saying the exact same applies to them. Those kids should be ashamed of themselves. Suddenly, one of Joshua's knights warns him. The enemy mage is casting spells even inside this barrier. That is insane. He must be at least a third-class caster, but the white-haired boy just laughs it off. A mage inside a barrier is still just a target. He charges straight at them. Steel clashes against steel. Mid-fight, Joshua starts to realize something is off. Where is Julian? Suddenly, a high-pitched scream rings out in the distance. Blue lightning and a blinding flash erupt. Joshua leans out the window to look. Down on the ground lies a completely charred man, defeated and broken. Irritated, he realizes someone managed to unleash incredible power even inside the barrier. Meanwhile, his useless ally did nothing. This screw-up will cost him his job. William grips his wand tightly, staring at the destruction in total disbelief. The heavy barrier still drags at every movement. Joshua watches the opposing mage. Even on the brink of collapse, the man refuses to back down. He keeps fighting. Joshua whispers that he might need to pull out his trump card soon. But he must save it for Julian, not waste it on these weak underlings. The silver-haired boy searches for any weakness, the moment he spots an opening. He grabs a nearby potted plant and hurls it directly at the mage. The clay pot flies toward William, who can barely move in time to dodge. Before it even lands, Joshua lunges forward, closing the distance instantly. Desperate, the mage tries to charge a spell, but his opponent is too fast. With a confident smirk, Joshua snatches the magic wand right out of his hand. He delivers a brutal kick, sending William crashing hard against the stone wall. Pain flares through the injured man. Now, the helpless mage faces a cold blade. Joshua sneers, mockingly pointing out that even third-class mages are useless inside barriers. Eyes burning with hatred, he asks how a piece of trash like him dared stand in his way. He demands to know exactly how much money Julian paid him to do this. Joshua throws out a random guess, while William looks completely baffled. Without waiting for any reply, the young swordsman slams his opponent onto the hard ground. Trying to defend himself, the mage grabs Joshua's boot and desperately yells out. He screams that Julian did not hire him. Joshua does not buy it for a second. But the man insists he is actually there to assassinate Julian. Joshua freezes, completely speechless, as he tries to process this crazy twist. His shock quickly fades. He says he does not care if it is true the man got in his way. Now he must pay. Breaking out in a cold sweat, William realizes his life is on the line. Joshua's sword rests mere inches from his chest. Death is looking him right in the face. But right before the lethal blow, an unexpected sound halts the execution. Talk about awful timing. Wait until you see who just walked through that door. It is Julian. He steps forward slowly, completely unnoticed until this very moment. Instantly on guard, Joshua tenses up and steps back, changing his stance. The protagonist kneels down, inspecting the shattered shards of the pot thrown at William. Shards are scattered everywhere. Nearby, Joshua grips his sword, trying to steady his trembling hands. He desperately fights his fear, praying that their barrier will keep Julian at bay. Meanwhile, Julian gently runs his fingers through the spilled dirt. He murmurs that this really hurts because he genuinely loved that little plant. Hearing this, the silver-haired intruder is completely stunned by what he sees. Their defense is up, yet Julian's terrifying pressure shows absolutely no sign of weakening. Julian mutters that the kid deserves a lesson. Rewind to just a bit earlier. Julian had just arrived at his mansion, immediately sensing something off. The estate looked completely normal, yet the surrounding mana felt highly unstable. Immediately, one thought crossed his mind: the ambush Lazarus had warned him about. It made sense. Countless enemies held deep grudges against the Foxside villain. Naturally, some of them were bound to take matters into their own hands. But Julian was no pushover anymore. He had worked hard to hone his skills. He even perfected the moonlight sword. Now, we go back to the present. The protagonist walked through his corridors. The entire place was a total mess. Bodies littered the floor. A massive struggle had clearly happened while he was away. As he searched the wreckage, something unexpected suddenly caught his attention. A shattered piece of art lay on the ground. These intruders had destroyed everything. The original Julian would have been furious, but the protagonist, he remained completely calm. Broken art didn't move him, but this was different. Right there in the dust lay a shattered flower pot, broken into tiny pieces. It was his beloved little plant, his favorite companion. Angelica was completely crushed. Seeing her ruin like this triggered a sudden surge of raw emotion inside him. She was the first plant he ever watered and named after becoming Julian. Gritting his teeth, he felt a sudden wave of hot anger take over. He made a silent promise to make these bastards pay for what they did. To honor Angelica, he resolved to kill every last person in this mansion. He readied his moonlight sword, then he suddenly snapped back to his senses. Getting this emotional over a potted plant was honestly pretty weird, and he knew it. Perhaps living inside Julian's body was actually starting to mess with his mind. He took a deep breath, trying to calm down over something so trivial. But sweet memories of watering her soil suddenly flooded his mind. He watered her daily. He always placed her near the window, so she could catch the warm sunlight, carefully wiping her leaves before bed. He even fed her special plant nutrients. She was his whole world. Knowing someone had ruthlessly crushed her made his blood boil with fury. These intruders truly deserved to die. Coldly, Julian finally spoke. He asked what they planned to do now that their midnight ambush had failed. While keeping his eyes closed, the young man quietly began to assess the situation. Capturing Joshua would be incredibly easy, but that mysterious mage was a wild card. He still had no idea what kind of magic the robed figure used. If both of them attacked simultaneously, things might actually get a little tricky. Deciding to provoke them, Julian declared that even if they teamed up, they still would not stand a single chance of walking away alive. Anyone who dares to bare their fangs at Julian is absolutely marked for death. Acting like a generous lord, he offers them one final, twisted chance to survive. He orders the intruders to fight each other, leaving them completely bewildered. Only the victor gets to walk away, but Joshua senses a deadly trap. He knows this psychopath is just playing with them for his own sick amusement. Even though they manage to break in, they are still utterly insignificant. Julian regards them as mere bugs. Still, with the mage down, Joshua might stand a chance. Or maybe that strange demon horn could give the spiky-haired boy an edge. But William begins shaking violently, his mind completely unraveling as fear takes hold. Suddenly, the crazed mage lunges at Joshua, launching a desperate surprise attack. Joshua tries to argue that they must team up, but the terrified wizard refuses to listen. He is convinced it is a trick and strikes back, blinded by survival instincts. Ignoring all warnings that Julian is just manipulating them, the mage prepares his magic. Joshua dodges the incoming spell, sprinting down the hallway to find an opening. He leaps into the air, launching a brutal counteroffensive with his sword. His blade tears right through William's chest, dealing a massive, fatal blow. The mage collapses instantly, his lifeless body crashing onto the cold floor. Catching his breath, Joshua looks down at his dead opponent with grim satisfaction. Now he has to face Julian, the smiling executioner who spares absolutely no one. Blood drips down Joshua's face as he realizes his chances of survival are zero. Staring at Julian Wright now feels like standing before a ready guillotine. Gripping his sword until his knuckles turn white, the boy searches for escape. That is when he remembers the special horn alphas gifted him earlier. The strange artifact is rumored to grant the user the dark power of a demon. With it, he might actually defeat Julian, or at least buy time to flee. But as he reaches into his coat, he feels a sudden chill of dread. His pocket is torn open, and the precious demonic horn is completely gone. Glancing over, he spots the bleeding William crawling away with the artifact. The dying mage mutters that he has no choice and simply refuses to die. Begging the archbishop for forgiveness, William raises the cursed horn to his lips. Instantly, his flesh begins to warp as a demonic horn erupts from his skull. Joshua watches the grotesque transformation, completely frozen in absolute horror. He mentally curses alphas for setting them up with this cursed relic. The knight promised the power of a demon, not that they would actually become one. Watching with folded arms, Julian calmly asks if that horn belonged to him. Joshua stammers out that he received it from a holy knight named Alphas. Julian immediately recognizes that name. Alphas is a key leader of the Dawn Society. They absolutely despise him, but luckily, the horn William used is a fake. This weak transformation looks just like the slum demon Julian fought before. It matches the severe side effects Alina warned about, yielding a very weak monster. In the end, this creature is far weaker than his own shadow soldiers. While Julian analyzes the situation, the demonized William unleashes a blood-curdling shriek. Joshua covers his face in terror, dreading what this monster will do next. Desperate, the boy begs Julian to put the rampaging beast down immediately. He argues that as a member of the noble Kryart family, it is his duty. Julian is supposed to protect him. The demon William lunges straight at Joshua, stomping its massive foot to build up speed. It wildly leaps forward to tear into him with sharp claws. Watching from safety, Julian mutters that Joshua is basically a dead man. Unless someone steps in, Joshua immediately tries to play the sibling card, crying and begging his big brother to save his life. This sudden begging actually catches the main character off guard. The demon keeps closing in on Joshua, but then something unexpected happens. It charges right past the terrified kid. Julian instantly realizes the monster changed its target, drawn in by his own overwhelming bloodlust. Honestly, Julian is more than ready to send this beast straight to hell. Some might think it is pretty ironic how much he hates demons, yet seeks their power. As the demon rushes him, Julian stands his ground and grips his hilt. He lets out a quiet chuckle, completely unfazed by the threat. To him, this beast is nothing more than a mindless bug crawling his way. Before the monster can even swing, William suddenly shrieks and face blunts. Julian's lightning-fast blade has already carved a massive gash into its shoulder. With zero pity, Julian looks down at the writhing beast. He quickly notices that William has gained a pretty crazy regenerative ability. Usually, human traits carry over to the new demon form. It looks like the mage's desperate will to live mutated into healing power. Watching the madness, Joshua wonders how the main character can possibly win. Julian just smirks. He is actually starting to enjoy this. A powerful mage who once cast incredible spells is now just a regenerating beast. Honestly, the main character finds this whole downfall to be pretty amusing. He taps his chin, studying his opponent with a sharp gaze. It turns out his perception skill reveals the trick. No matter how fast the monster heals, he just needs to crush its core. His trained eyes scan the demon, searching for that one vital sweet spot. Suddenly, a strange glow on the monster's forehead catches his eye. Julian figures it out instantly. The core is right there. It is almost like William is begging him to put him out of his misery. But the former mage is not done yet. He cracks his neck, readying his body. As his wounds seal up completely, he is hyper-focused on Julian's next move. Julian casually asks if they can get back to the fight now. With a deafening roar, the beast lunges. Julian tells him to bring it on. His moonlight sword shines brilliantly, casting a cold glow across the battlefield. Completely fearless, the demonized William charges ahead with brute force. As the monster closes the distance, Julian raises his blade, unleashing a blindingly fast slash right through the air. The strike hits dead on, cleanly severing the monster's left arm like wet paper. The impact is so violent that a few drops of black blood splatter onto his cheek. But Julian barely cares. This struggle is totally pointless anyway. Still fueled by rage, the armless demon presses the attack, forcing Julian to block. The young swordsman grins, mockingly asking if that is really all he has got. How the beast dared attack a demon hunter, suddenly with a sharp vertical slash of his blade, the swordsman completely flips the battle. As a result of the brutal charge, the monster loses its other arm, once again. Splattering blood across Julian's face, he drops into an attack stance, preparing a lethal final strike aimed directly at the demon's core inside its head. As soon as he spots an opening, the young man lunges forward, stepping on the enemy's chest for leverage. He pulls his arm back, preparing the devastating strike. With a dark, sinister smile, ready to end it all, with a final sword strike, the protagonist pierces the demon's core, shattering it like a fragile glass jewel. The beast's body falls backward, and Julian lightly jumps away. Its eyes grow completely dark, and that terrifying regeneration ability fails to activate. William's ruined face is barely visible, pinned to the ground by the cold blade. Finally, the monster goes completely limp. The main character looks over the corpse, brushing off the dirt, wiping down his clothes. He looks incredibly smug about his flawless victory, and rips the sword free from the demon's skull, declaring at the top of his lungs that he is Julian, the ultimate demon hunter. But inside he is deeply cringing at having to act so dramatically. Meanwhile, the terrified witness who watched the duel stands frozen. It's Joshua Kryart, his entire body trembling with fear. The victorious swordsman casually strolls down the dim hallway, his suit still flawless, and approaches the terrified Joshua kneeling on the floor, stroking his chin. Julian observes just how terrified the young man is. He definitely deserves a harsh punishment for breaking into this mansion at night. But this particular noble is far too valuable to the powerful Kryart family. Perhaps it is time to recruit him as a useful ally. Julian slowly crouches down, placing a gentle hand on Joshua's shoulder, and congratulates him in a sinister tone for somehow surviving this absolute nightmare. A suffocating, terrifying aura bleeds from him, but a bit later, the main character is deep in thought. Horn artifact. He never expected to encounter another replica in a place like this. Having already discovered one hidden deep in the slums, according to the novel, These artificial horns only trigger major disasters after the sinister Dawn Society expands. Its reach across the empire, tapping the dark stone, Julian begins to realize that the timeline is shifting way too fast. Talk about a massive deviation. Should only happen after Rena graduates from the academy. This is because the mastermind behind these fakes has an incredibly close connection to her primary target for revenge. Connecting the pieces, Julian realizes the shadowy figure responsible for crafting these horns must be the elusive Black Knight. This masked warrior hides from the Imperial forces while fighting the corrupt Dawn Society with absolute, overwhelming power. His true identity is none other than the famed holy swordsman, Hayden Reich. But if he has already emerged, then these replicas should not have surfaced this early without any public whispers surrounding them. This dead silence deeply troubles Julian, maybe the rogue loyalist Pintle has not made his move yet. The Black Knight only rises to fame after blocking Pintle from securing the vital soul stones, since he wants to prevent the demon god's return and crush the Dawn Society. This mysterious warrior should be a natural ally, yet our protagonist refuses to buy that. The Black Knight had not appeared yet, just watching the potential danger unfold. He had complete trust in Hayden, not just because of the story. After all, the man is the main character, but either way, the boy had to focus on his primary goal, setting a good example.